Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1253 of the War News stream. And today we have very big news out of the South China Sea that China's expanded really rapidly in that area, expanding, of course, a lot of their military facilities. Also, Israel's airstriking Syria with fighter jets, and the Russian submarine bases have been rocked by major earthquakes, about 5 of them just today alone. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we've been getting significant news from the South China Sea area that the People's Liberation Army has not only started to rapidly ramp up the amount of forces present within the area, but it also appears that new satellite imagery and photography unveiled to the public is beginning to show that naval facilities and bases within the Paracel Islands and other regions of the South China Sea have been rapidly formed and evolved over the past year, heavily showing a new and profound element of the People's Liberation Army that is going to be attempting to make a permanent presence throughout the South China Sea, which the People's Republic of China illegally claims to control the entirety of. We have also been able to see that this is coming at the exact same time today as the People's Republic of China has openly shot down demands and threats by the United States to stop purchases of Russian oil and gas or otherwise suffer from sanctions and tariffs levied by the United States against the People's Republic of China, against the Russian Federation, and their continued exports of their oils and gases to the Chinese. The Chinese have made it incredibly clear that they not only will not stop these purchases, but will continue them as a form of financial support to the Russian Federation that is transactional at best. We have also been able to hear that the United States of America is now going on the warpath against Russian Federation gas and oil exports, as we've also been able to hear that 25% tariffs are now going to be levied against the Republic of India by the United States of America for their continued purchase and acquisitions of Russian natural gas and oils, which have been continued to be imported into the Republic of India throughout the entirety of the conflict. The President of the United States has made it clear that these tariffs and sanctions can be lifted if the Republic of India is to cease their further purchases and allowed purchases of Russian oils and petroleums. We have also been able to hear of significant news inside the state of Ukraine, as the Ukrainian armed forces have been conducting naval raids today with their special forces on a Russian fort along the Crimean coast built onto an abandoned oil rig, which was apparently captured and destroyed today by Ukrainian armed forces just several miles off the Crimean coast. We have also been able to hear that the Ukrainian special forces have also landed on one of the Kinburn spits near to the area of the Dnipro River Estuary and were able to raid Russian positions within this area and apparently gather vital intelligence and data of Russian force positions and Russian fire positions within this area. The Russian Federation has also made it incredibly clear today that they will not be seeking a cessation to the war anytime soon within the 10-day deadline and will be continuing their war against the state of Ukraine into the indefinite future as long as either the Russian army or the Russian economy is left standing. We have also been able to hear that the state of Israel has conducted significant bombing campaigns against a Syrian army depot near to the area of Latakia. It appears the direct hits were caused directly to the ammunition depots housed within the area, and the explosions were quite significant, being seen from the surrounding cityscapes, once again showing us that the state of Israel is taking further offensive action against the al-Jilani government, which appears to be continuing their attacks on the Druze people and the minorities throughout the entirety of the Syrian interim government's control. The state of Israel has also continued their campaign inside the Gaza Strip as of today, and we were able to see the UN humanitarian convoys appear to have been commandeered by some of the remaining elements of Hamas, and actually were raced through the remaining unoccupied area of the Strip at high speed to bring them to a Hamas stockpile to then further control the food resources of the Gazan people. Outside of that, we've also been able to see the Ukrainian armed forces have been continuing to hold their lines today, and while heavy firefighting footage was seen throughout some large areas of the front, and Russian forces were not able to make any major significant advances over the course of the day, it appears that Russian casualties were a little bit lower than we've normally seen. But nevertheless, it does appear that this may be due to a lack of Russian offensive efforts over the course of the day, because we were able to confirm that Ukrainian defensive forces, and front lines for that matter, were able to hold the lines, and the front lines have largely remained unchanged throughout the course of the day. We have also been able to see other major things throughout the entirety of the world news, including some updates on the earthquake epicenter, which was seen 88 kilometers off the Kamchatka Peninsula's coastline just last night, and some additional updates about aftershocks that have been felt today and the activation of a volcano on the Kamchatka Peninsula because of the seismic activity. We have a large amount of news that has come out from around the world once again, and we are going to be making sure to cover those past 24 hours to each and every one of y'all in the greatest detail that we can possible. And that is going to be moving us directly on into the area of the South China Sea and largely East Asia as a whole, as a significant and developing part of global politics, well, not really global politics, but global diplomacy over the course of the day. As we have been able to hear that within the area of the South China Sea, it appears that the People's Republic of China, through the People's Liberation Army, is beginning to rapidly build up their forces and also their force availability within the area as they continue to try and exert an illegal claim over the entirety of the South China Sea. This goes all the way back to the 9 dotted line, and I'll quickly try and pull that up for y'all. This is the 9 dash line right here. As you can see right here, these green lines actually indicate what the People's Republic of China claims is a part of Chinese territorial waters throughout the area of the South China Sea. This is an incredibly old territorial claim. It is as old as the Communist Chinese claim over the island of Taiwan, and actually expands as a part of the same territorial claims that are made against Taiwan, and these were made by none other than Mao Zedong, the founder of Communist China, back when the People's Republic of China was declared in 1949. He actually drew a very crude dotted line, or a dash line, a 9 dash line as it's called, throughout the South China Sea, pretty much claiming the entirety of it as Chinese territorial waters, not allowing for any international waterways or anything else to exist within this area. The People's Republic of China, and largely the Communist Chinese during that period and in the modern day, have never really been able to completely expand their control to the 9 dash lines limits within the South China Sea, but we have seen that the People's Republic of China has started to get more openly hostile with their neighbors inside the South China Sea, including Malaysia, the Philippines, and Vietnam, as they attempt to continue to gain control of all of the larger island chains within this area, and to also pretty much cut off the coastal waters and exclusive economic zones of Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia altogether. We have been able to see that as a result of this action, and as a result of other actions that have been happening in foreign policy over the past few months, the People's Republic of China is starting to massively build up their bases and facilities throughout the region. This is actually one of the facilities that the People's Republic of China has built recently and has started to rapidly expand in prior years to try and help facilitate their abilities to forcibly claim or at least project military influence over the entirety of the South China Sea. And we've also been able to hear that according to U.S. intelligence and also satellite photography, it appears that the amount of present armed forces on these islands is beginning to be built up at a rapid pace, far faster than any other period that we've seen before. To say that these islands popped over overnight would be markedly untrue. These islands have actually been under construction, or largely the surface of these islands have been under development since about the latter part of the 2010s, around 2016 and 2017. Over the years, the People's Republic of China has been able to build airstrips, military barracks, ammunition depots, and supply hubs, and multiple other such important facilities and logistical infrastructures on these islands that would help for them to be able to expand their military influence and prowess throughout the area and to start threatening China's neighbors, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia, and their control or ownership under the United Nations and also international law of the islands that they specifically own. You can actually see within the Paracel Islands, one of these islands is actually a little bit more clear to see. This is actually a island in the Paracel Islands that is directly controlled by the People's Republic of China and has been used to attempt to power project within the region, or at least with future plans to power project inside the region. We can see here that they do have an airbase on the island, along with a decent amount of ammunition storages that are hardened ammunition storages, meaning that it would be much more difficult to be able to destroy this ammunition in full as you would with a soft Russian ammunition shelter like we will find in the Ukraine war. They also have an extensive amount of barracks and additional supply structures and ammunition depots to be able to operate anti-air defenses, anti-ship defenses, and also to be able to arm and equip aircraft and ships that can be based at this island. You can also see that they have conducted significant dredging operations at this specific island to be able to deepen these artificial harbors, to be able to allow for the larger deep water vessels of the People's Liberation Army Navy to be able to arrive and harbor at these islands and use them as forward operating bases for military operations within the South China Sea. This is one of several islands that the Chinese have built up over the years, including this one, to be able to try and conduct these military operations. According to the information that has been issued by intelligence to some news sources here in the United States, these islands include the following: harbors, large runways, more than 72 fighter jet hangars across 3 big island bases, surface-to-air missile and anti-ship cruise missile emplacements, and loads of radar, sensing, and communication infrastructure. These bases are the result of the quickest example of mass dredging and landfill in human history. I also have to point out really quickly that some of these islands actually are artificial. The People's Republic of China has actually been, through the years, bringing dredgers into the South China Sea to artificially create a mass extent of these islands, to also turn them and eventually cultivate them into islands that either the People's Republic of China attempts to make a physical land claim over, stating that this now extends their territorial waters, or to build these military bases on, as we were seeing in that picture and on Google Earth just a second ago. We can also see additional satellite and picture evidence showing us the massive buildup of Chinese bases that have been seen within the area, and this is, of course, one of many that have been a fairly common sight throughout the entirety of the South China Sea. To really quickly show you all this, we can see that the People's Liberation Army Air Force is present here on this particular island, as satellite photography did show us that there are Xi'an H-6 medium-range bombers that are actually based here at this island facility. The Xi'an H-6 is the closest thing that China has to a strategic bomber of a sort, and I'll really quickly show you all one of those in normal picture. Here is what a Xi'an H-6 looks like. These bombers are incredibly important for anti-maritime patrols and can also be used in a conventional bomber role, or more so in the modern conventional bomber role of being a standoff bomber. But generally, these excel in the anti-naval or anti-maritime patrol roles, which this aircraft is pretty much specifically designed for. The Xi'an H-6 can carry a wide variety of anti-ship missiles and can patrol wide swaths of the Chinese Sea, and in the outbreak of war, or actually use its impressive range and speed to be able to fire anti-ship missiles at fleets of vessels either belonging to the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, the United States of America, or the Republic of China on the island of Taiwan. These sorts of aircraft are quite dangerous to have, at least within the area, and also even more dangerous for them to have active operational bases that they can function from inside the South China Sea. Not only that, these islands are veritable fortresses, not just for the bombers that are based at the airfields, but also for the naval vessels that may be resupplying at these islands, or for the Air Force in general that may also be operating from these islands. They also pose a significant threat to ships. We can see that throughout the entirety of the area, there is a large amount of missile shelters once again present on this island like the last. We can also see a decent amount of sensor and communication facilities to make sure that it has a direct connection to the Southern Theater Command inside of the Guangzhou province of China. We can also see that there is, of course, extensive airbase facilities. All of this pretty much adding into China's ability to be able to expand their influence in this region. Not only that, but satellite photography and pictures in recent days have started to show a heightened amount of aircraft and naval vessels present within the area by the People's Republic of China, which is starting to raise concerns amongst allies of the United States, including the Philippines, that the People's Republic of China may be attempting here soon to start stretching their legs militarily and see how far the limit goes by attempting to militarily declare control of the Paracel Islands and the Spratly Islands owned by the Philippines in as a whole. This could be a fairly large diplomatic occurrence if this does happen. We do believe that, at least at the moment, the People's Republic of China is still attempting to span out their abilities to be able to conduct an actual amphibious invasion of the island of Taiwan. And such an invasion is still well off in the distance, most likely, more than likely, happening around the earlier part of 2027 at the earliest at this point, considering that People's Liberation Army naval abilities in the amphibious role have not been built out to a large enough or capable enough degree that they would be able to successfully pull off a large enough ground invasion on the island of Taiwan if they were even able to weaken the Taiwanese Air Force and Navy enough to be able to see a suitable ground invasion or the elements for a ground invasion occur. On the other hand, taking the Paracel and Spratly Islands in full is something that would be a little bit easier for the People's Republic of China to pull off. This will require very little ground fighting, as a large amount of the islands in the Spratlys are incredibly small, quite literally sandbars at best, and if the People's Republic of China is able to militarily take these islands, which we've already seen that they've been trying to conduct in earnest, taking one island at a time from the Vietnamese or attempting to take them from the Philippines, if they were to try and launch a full-scale invasion of all of these islands, this would be pretty much an entirely naval-based war. There would be little ground forces involved, or little need for the People's Liberation Army, Navy, Marine Corps to conduct amphibious ground operations of any larger scale, which means that currently, attempting to pursue their ambitions in the South China Sea is something that could be sprung forward by the Communist Chinese at quite literally any moment, as strategically they are entirely competent and capable in trying to achieve this significant goal. It does appear that a lot of people have been talking about the massive buildups that have been seen today inside the South China Sea, but before we talk about that in any greater depth, I do also have to add in for all of y'all that there has been a major development in foreign policy today that is once again starting to make the lines, at least in the sand, a little bit more clear as far as where the People's Republic of China stands. To give a little bit of a brief overview of what's already been going on today that we're going to be getting into later on tonight, the United States of America, through the President of the United States, has largely ended their deadline with the Russian Federation's into the war in Ukraine and has started to make it a 10-day countdown. As of today, the Russians have 9 days left, and it appears that the Russian Federation is already making it as clear as they can, without wasting any time, that they are not going to be waiting for the 10-day deadline to even count down to give their answer. The answer is no, and the war will continue. As a result of this, the President of the United States is already starting to put massive pressure on the major purchasers of Russian petroleum and gas products, which are largely the Republic of India and the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China has already given a direct answer to the United States' demand that they stop buying Russian petroleums and gases, and they have stated no, and they are saying that they will not abandon Russian oil at any point in the future. According to information that we were able to get from multiple sources today, China has rejected U.S. demands to stop purchasing Russian oil, stating that it will defend its energy sovereignty. Chinese officials emphasize that oil purchases will be determined by the country's domestic political needs, and that they are willing to pay tariffs tariffs of up to 100%. In response, the U.S. warned that the new bill in Congress could impose a 500% tariff on Russian oil, which would also apply to the People's Republic of China. The United States has also expressed dissatisfaction with China's export of dual-use goods to Russia worth over $15 billion at the current date. These actions by the People's Republic of China could undermine its reputation in Europe, where it is seen as supporting the war. Yesterday, the Chinese and the United States extended their trade truce for another 90 days, but it's unclear whether the U.S. will be able to impose secondary sanctions in the future. Given this in mind, the diplomatic atmosphere between the United States and the People's Republic of China is starting to become tenser once again. To give you all a little bit of the larger diplomatic atmosphere that the actions in the South China Sea are currently being conducted under. Seeing that the diplomatic atmosphere is starting to degrade greatly between the two countries, the United States and China, with the United States largely being the guarantor of the Philippines and the Taiwanese access to their sovereignty of the seas, at least within the surrounding areas, it does appear that this rapid buildup of Chinese Air Force and naval abilities within the South China Sea may be a larger part of creating a diplomatic incident or something even greater than that. And that's what generally leads us into the question that a lot of y'all have been talking about and answering at this moment as to what are the People's Republic of China up to inside the South China Sea? And is this clearly war preparation, or is this more so a standoff to create some sort of a diplomatic concession of the sort, or force the United States to a negotiating table about the impending tariffs that may be levied against the Communist Chinese for their support of the Russian petroleum and gas industries? And Matthew, what are you thinking about this, and what is everyone else thinking about this as well?
All right, so now that the reports have come out today showing that the South China Sea is basically being invaded by the Chinese Navy, it's really getting really out of control right now. Excuse me, by the way. Had a little bit of a frog in the throat there. But we're seeing, obviously, in the South China Sea, it is getting really, really rough right now. So the big question is it clearly war preparation? 49% said yes, it's prep for a new major war by China, while 27% said it's a little bit of both, territorial expansion and prep for a major war, and 18% said no, it's just territorial expansion. And I would personally say it is a little bit of both, but I would say mainly leaning toward a sign of preparations for a new major war, because they would not be taking all these islands and doing one of the most rapid and quick and effective dredging operations that the world has ever seen in the South China Sea, building up brand new islands, military bases, and basically taking control of an entire area with these new artificial islands. That, in my opinion, that is clearly preparations for a major war and not just merely territorial expansion. So I'm with the 49%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be with the 49% as well. I do believe this is a preparation for a new major war that is going to be coming in the future, which does not mean that this is going to be immediate, to say that. This is probably at least a half year away from us at the moment, but it does appear that the People's Republic of China is already attempting to build up their forces within this area, so any sort of an action by the United States or any surrounding allies to mitigate this inevitable action will already be met with stiff resistance if it needs to be. The People's Republic of China has made it incredibly clear, at least under their current leadership of Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party, that they are looking to rapidly expand and finally realize the territorial ambitions that were laid out by Mao Zedong at the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949. That includes the claiming of the small islands within the Amur River bordering the Russian Federation, the capture and ownership of the island of Taiwan, currently under the jurisdiction of the Republic of China, and also the ownership of pretty much the entirety of the South China Sea, including the seizure and complete destruction of the territorial waters inside of the People's Republic of Vietnam and the Republic of the Philippines, as well as Malaysia. This is all leading us to know that the People's Republic of China is trying to build up their military forces to prepare to eventually seize these final land claims that the People's Republic of China has never been able to realize throughout its 80 years of communist history up until this point. I would have to say that because of that, and also because of the souring diplomatic relations between the United States and the People's Republic of China, which no matter how much people like to ignore, it's becoming incredibly clear that the relationship is wildly strained, even at its best moments, is most likely going to be leading to a situation where China will attempt to push forward with taking these islands. To be entirely honest with y'all, as far as military objectives are concerned, the capture by the Chinese of the Paracel and Spratly Islands is actually a lot easier than one would believe. In fact, this is probably the easiest thing that they could do between the two, of either taking these islands or taking the island of Taiwan. The island of Taiwan is not an easy thing to, not an easy undertaking to be able to capture. It has a significant armed force on the island, equipped with a large amount of anti-air equipment, Air Force aircraft, as well as anti-ship missiles, which would pose a significant threat to any sort of an amphibious landing by the People's Republic of China. On the other hand, most of these islands in the Paracel and Spratly Islands are practically and veritably undefended. And for that reason, if the Chinese Navy would want to sail out into the area of the Paracel and Spratly Islands and attempt some sort of a seizure or capture of the area, that is actually somewhat easier and more possible to do, as it's really relying on the muscle of the Chinese Navy and limited actions of the smaller People's Liberation Army, Navy, Marine Corps than anything else. The Southern Theater Command of the People's Republic of China is actually geared and specifically made for this purpose of power projection and the eventual capture of the Paracel and Spratly Islands at some point in the inevitable future. If you don't believe me, go pull it up. That's literally the whole point the Southern Theater Command in the People's Republic of China exists. So with that in mind, that's what I'm largely believing at this point, is that the Paracel and Spratly Islands are most likely in a great deal of jeopardy, and if the Chinese wanted to test how far they could push the diplomatic limit without getting in a full conflict, they might attempt to take these islands first, as militarily they're going to be easier to take, and not only that, the ability for the United States or any of the surrounding countries to put up any armed resistance to stop the capture of these islands would be incredibly limited at best. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least from the information that we have right now. And if anyone has any other greater questions about that situation in the South China Sea at the moment, let us know, because I'll be more than happy to try and give as many answers as I can, because one thing that I've actually read up a lot on and researched is the People's Liberation Army, its abilities, and what they are generally pursuing as their greater interest or objectives within the region, and also what the Chinese Communist Party has stated through their multiple party plenums that they have also made clear are their objectives for the future in terms of territorial gains and ambitions, and also economic wishes or goals that they have for the future. But nevertheless, moving on from that news for a brief moment, we have been able to hear that this is generally an extent or a major part of the greater picture that is going on between the United States and the Russian Federation. It actually appears that the Russian Federation may be spiraling the world closer to some sort of a global conflict than a lot of people would believe. And to really quickly bring y'all through all of that today, I've got to bring y'all through a little bit of a series of events to make sure to lay out the story or the sequence that we're seeing today as best as we can. Recently, the President of the United States has put out a 50-day ultimatum to the Russian Federation that they must seek peace with the state of Ukraine and achieve a ceasefire within that 50-day period. Otherwise, the United States of America is going to move forward with significant sanctions and tariffs against the Russian Federation's petroleum and gas industries, and also further armed support to the state of Ukraine. The Russian Federation has responded by generally treating that as a joke. Recently, just yesterday, the President of the United States has now decreased the amount of days left from 36 to 10. If the Russian Federation does not reach an amenable peace settlement with the state of Ukraine within the remaining 10 days, they will start to implement a heavy amount of sanctions and tariffs against the Russian Federation's petroleum and oils, and will also threaten any countries doing business with the Russian Federation to drop their trade with Russia, specifically in oil and gas. Otherwise, the United States is also going to be implementing tariffs and sanctions against their nations and their economies as well. We have already been able to see that not only is the People's Republic of China already a part of that general demand to stop trade with Russia, but the Republic of India didn't even get a chance to answer for themselves. The President of the United States has stated that there is going to be an implementation of tariffs against the Republic of India with the current situation. And to quickly give you all the direct statement made by the President of the United States, remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they have always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia, which is factually true, and are Russian Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. All things not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting on August 1st, meaning that this is actually going to be going into effect within the next 2 days. It's something that is starting to show us that the pressure is at least being ramped up at the moment, and while the United States of America has been further closening itself and strengthening its ties with the Republic of India and further distancing Pakistan in the meantime, it appears that this action may be a reversing all of those efforts as it started to become clear that the current administration is going to be pursuing an aggressive campaign of stopping any kinds of Russian petroleum and oil purchases worldwide, including the largest customers of the Russian Federation, including the People's Republic of China and the Republic of India. This is starting to make it incredibly clear that if any tensions were to start popping off, they generally are actually stemming from the Russian Federation's war in Ukraine, and not really more so a spurning off of any individual conflicts, which have just reached a ripe time inside of the Southeast Asian regions or within the Indian subcontinent, if those are to start up again. And it does appear that a lot of people are starting to notice a little bit of a pattern with this, at least, in that a lot of the countries that had been dealing with the Russian Federation, especially the People's Republic of China, appear to be quite adamant to keep up that relationship. And there's a general reason why. Russian oil and gas is fairly cheap. And also, it's incredibly numerous, and considering that no one else wants to buy Russian oil and gas, the Russians are desperate to sell it to anyone who will buy it, meaning that if you're a customer of the Russian oil and petroleum market right now, you have an unlimited supply of cheaper fuels that you can end up getting from the Russian Federation right now. No credit card, no bullshit. You just sign up and you get the Russian oil and gas pretty much indefinitely, as long as you can pay the small amount that they're asking for, just to keep their companies alive, which pretty much means that China and India, in an economic sense, are pretty much bankrolling the Russian Federation and keeping the war going. And this is leading a lot of people to wonder what is going to be the answer, not really from India alone, but from all of Russia's major oil and petroleum customers, both the People's Republic of China and the Republic of India, on this ultimatum by the United States to either cut off the Russians economically or to keep doing business with them and practically bankroll their war effort into the foreseeable future. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about this as well?
All right, so we did hear today that China confirmed it has no plans to stop buying Russian oil despite the U.S. demands to do otherwise. So the big question is China going to bankroll Russia, or what is going to be the deal? So 71% said yes, China will bankroll Russia through these oil purchases, while 13% said no, China will let Russia collapse, and 12% said it's a 50-50 chance right now it could go either way. Now, this is the one thing that I've been harping on for a little while. I said that China would not let Russia economically crumble, and they would find a way to bankroll their economy, because right now, Russia is the only real ally that China has that's still considered a pretty sizable power. Even though their military sucks, they're still a sizable power. So China needs a buddy, because right now, the world is splitting into two different hemispheres, the Axis and Allied powers, yet again, since World War II, and China does not want to find itself without an ally. So if that means buying Russian oil en masse and then telling the U.S. basically to piss off, they'll do that because they want to make sure that Russia stays economically viable so they can stay and keep the Putin regime basically in charge. So this is their version of bankrolling Russia, and the fact they're willing to go at odds with the United States in a trade capacity over it, that really shows you how strong China and Russia's relationship is right now going into this future, which is getting very, very precarious when it comes to a global conflict. So I'm with the 71%. I think it's pretty clear they are indeed bankrolling them, like I predicted a while back. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my honest opinion, I would have to be with the 72% as well, that the Chinese are practically going to be bankrolling the Russian Federation through buying Russian petroleum and gas. It's a fairly big thing for the Russian Federation to make sure that those economic institutions remain alive, and to really quickly show y'all why, let me show y'all the Russian export tree map. Because we have to show y'all this, if anything, to show y'all why this is important. This is what Russia's economy looks like in terms of exports. And remember, everyone, trade is how money is made. Producing things for domestic purposes generally doesn't produce a lot of money. Getting other people's money on a national level or an international level is what you make money from. And that's why back in the day, just to quickly explain this, when people in the United States were living during the quote unquote the good times economically from the 50s to about the 70s or so, that generally was because America was the largest industrial exporter on the planet at that time. And we were raking in bukus of cash, not from selling these products inside the United States and keeping them American made. We were making lots of money because American made goods with the title Made in USA were being sold pretty much throughout the entirety of Europe and the rest of the world at large. That's what made the United States money. That's what makes every country money. Trade is the ultimate producer of cash. And the Russian Federation's main way of conducting trade and making that sweet, sweet cash is through that sweet, sweet petroleum. And you can see here that petroleum and gas products alone make up well more than 65% of their economic output, at least in terms of trade, every single year. This is something that's incredibly important. This actually means, in economic terms, that the Russian Federation is economically what's called a monolithic economy. And to quickly explain that, monolithic economies are an economy that relies on one single commodity or one single item to be able to produce the large part of their economic output or gross domestic product. A lot of countries actually are economic monoliths, such as Saudi Arabia, or Iran, or Russia, or really anyone else that produces oil. Oil countries, or oil-producing countries for the larger part, are usually, if not always, there are some exceptions, economic monoliths. Funnily enough, the United States of America, which is the largest petroleum producer in the world, is funnily enough not an economic monolith. We actually have a diversified, non-monolithic economy, meaning that we have multiple different economic sectors that pretty much exist in their own vacuum, detached from the rest of the economy. So that means if the oil industry collapsed in the U.S., that would have a ripple effect on other industries, but it wouldn't completely bring the U.S. economy down and make the country economically collapse. On the other hand, the Russian Federation, if they're stopped from selling their oils and gases around the world, they will financially and economically collapse. A great historical example of this is actually Cuba. Not communist Cuba. This is the Batista Cuba that came before communist Cuba. Cuba, before they became communist, was actually a dictatorship. And the general way that the Cuban dictatorship at that time was able to make its money, and this was after the Spanish-American War when Cuba became an independent state and the whole Platt Amendment thing existed, that whole deal, if you all know about that. But during that time, Cuba's main monolithic economic structure revolved around the sugar trade. Cuban cigars are famous, but Cuban sugar was quite truly world-renowned. Not because it was good, it was wildly cheap, and Cuba produced loads of it. The Cuban economy lived and died on the sugar cube, or generally sugar cane in general. When the sugar industry pretty much collapsed because of a U.S. External tariff that was put out in the 30s, and I'll also quickly explain that. Let me quickly explain that really quickly. So, when the Great Depression happened, the United States of America started to go into an economic depression, as hence the name, it's a Great Depression. The president at the time, Herbert Hoover, decided that the smartest idea to do would be to try and insulate American industries from the ebb and flow of the external international markets by implementing significant tariffs on foreign countries. One of those tariffs was a tariff on the importation of foreign sugar products, or pretty much sugar in general. This led to the Cuban economy, which was pretty much reliant entirely on its monolithic sugar-based economy, which also exported primarily sugars to the United States, to pretty much collapse overnight. Those tariffs, by the way, also ended up creating an even worse depression in the United States, as that foreign trade, which may have been able to produce a little bit of extra money, was no longer really possible as a retaliatory tariffs were pretty much slapped on immediately, and that actually made the Great Depression even worse. But beyond that, Cuba's economy, as a result of this, actually collapsed and burned as a result of those tariffs being implemented. And those are tariffs, funnily enough, folks, that are still on the books to this day. And if you're wondering why a lot of products in the United States don't really use a large amount of sugar, at least in the form of natural cane sugar, it's because there is still that existent tariff, and there aren't a lot of sugar producers in the United States that actually grow cane sugar. If they do, they're usually found in Florida or along the Gulf Coast, which isn't an incredibly large area, area to produce the sugar that would be required for the entire consumption of the United States. So producers went to the only other available options, which is beet sugar or corn syrup, which are also incredibly good substitutes for cane sugar, and are generally close to being similar, or close enough that they were passable. But outside of that, that generally is the reason why the Cuban economy collapsed. And so the general principle that's being implemented right now, much like it was on Cuba, if Russia's economy is a monolith, and much like Cuba relied on exporting their sugar, Russia relies on exporting their oils. If we stop them from exporting their oils and gases, their economy is going to completely collapse, a lot like Cuba's. Because it was through that economic collapse that happened in the 30s because of those tariffs that the Cuban government became so destabilized, and the Cuban economy and the Cuban nation as a whole became so destitute, it actually led to pretty much the breeding ground for Fidel Castro to begin his rebellion near to the area of the city of Trinidad, and kind of close to the Bay of Pigs, funnily enough, and then eventually create the revolution that would end up sweeping the entirety of the island and leading Batista to live in exile for the rest of his life inside the United States. It's pretty much the same kind of principle that we're doing against the Russian Federation. If they do not want to end the war in Ukraine, the idea the United States has is we're going to stop them from selling the only product that they sell abroad, and this will create a complete economic collapse in the Russian Federation. So it's either they take the peace in Ukraine and their economy may have a chance of surviving, or we are going to go out of their way to destroy the economy ourselves. And as a result of that, we are trying to force Russia's largest oil customers, China and India, from stopping their purchases of Russian petroleums. But it does appear that China...
Also, the third largest is Turkey. So you have China being the largest purchaser of Russian oil, then followed by India, and then followed by Turkey. So if you can get India and Turkey to stop buying the oil, that might be enough to put a large enough dent in it to cause the Russian economy to come to a screeching halt. But China, I think China, let's see here, what are the numbers? China takes in 21% of China's total crude oil directly from Russia through their ghost fleet that sends over the oil on these vessels, which are not Russian flagged, and they send it straight to China. So obviously it would be great to have China stop, but it doesn't sound like they're really willing to do that. In fact, it sounds like they're extremely opposed to it. They're willing to basically get into a trade war with the United States to basically keep buying Russian oil. So I'm not sure. I think maybe chipping away at India and Turkey first would probably be a better strategy, because I doubt that China's going to stop.
I would have to agree, and I think that China is going to continue to try and bankroll the Russians, and this is also the most advantageous way China can try and bankroll the Russians, because not only are they keeping the Russians in the fight financially, if they keep that going, China still gets access to a great deal of untapped energy potential that no one else is buying through their petroleums, that is able to keep the Chinese economy rolling somewhat strongly, at least on the energy infrastructure side of things, although there are a large amount of economic issues that are plaguing the People's Republic of China at the moment. So I would say that I do believe, getting back to the poll in a roundabout sort of way of explaining everything that I just did, that I do believe that the Chinese are going to continue to bankroll the Russian Federation through their purchase of Russian oils and petroleum. I think India is going to be an easier sell to make them no longer buy oils and petroleums, because also another thing that I have to say, because I did listen to a lot of the president's comments today on foreign policy, and not to always come up with a critique, but there was a critique that I did want to make. The President of the United States addressed BRICS as a actual economic alliance and said that India is a part of that, and BRICS is the We Hate America group. The issue is that is a very simplified overview of BRICS, and BRICS is not like the European Union or NATO or generally even the G7. It is a very, very weak confederation of economic alliances. It's not that strong, and it's incredibly weak. As a matter of fact, India and China absolutely hate each other. China has a predatory relationship with Russia secretly viewing the Chinese in leaked documents as an enemy of the state, and the Brazilians have practically no dealings with anyone else in BRICS for that matter. The South Africans, well, they're just doing their own thing, whatever the hell that is. So this is the weakest economic alliance that is seen on the planet currently. And so treating the Indians like they are an enemy of the United States, or largely making a statement like that today, is really starting to throw away a primetime opportunity that we have to actually break down BRICS from within. India hates China. India hates Pakistan. China supports Pakistan. Because of that, we have a great situation right now to where we can actually get the Indians to pretty much make themselves leave BRICS without doing it in any kind of a forceful or threatening way. We can, I think that the implementation of this sort of a tariff regimen against the Indians to kind of put a burner under their ass to get them off of the Russian oils and petroleums is a good idea, but we need to immediately follow that with some sort of reconciliatory action with the Indians to make sure that our diplomatic relationship with them isn't threatened, because they are a nuclear armed power on China's doorstep, on Pakistan's doorstep, and they're in the middle of the Indian Ocean. There is no better strategic partner that we can have in the region right now rather than the Republic of India. So I think that we need to make sure to be a little bit careful with our threats against the Indians, because they're actually in a fairly advantageous position at the moment, at least for our strategic concerns. So we want to make sure to balance that and pretty much not throw them into the BRICS camp where they're forced to end up becoming friends with the Chinese and trying to put behind their differences with the Chinese in the future. We want them separate and weak. We don't want them unified and strong, because we treat them as one giant unified alliance. So that's one critique that I would have from today, but beyond that, I do think that the Indians might be more responsive to the threat of U.S. tariffs that has been put out today than the Chinese would be, because the Indians can just buy from the Middle East. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, but I actually see a lot of people weighing in their opinions as to whether or not BRICS is a real, serious, and imminent threat to the Western world as an economic alliance, or is it not? And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So the big question is BRICS really that big of a deal? Because the U.S. officials are really making a huge deal out of it today in a press conference. So what is your opinion about BRICS? Is it something to take seriously or something to write off as a complete joke? So 41% said BRICS is a real threat, while 35% said BRICS is a weak joke, and 18% said it is slightly disturbing. And I will sort of have to be on the fence with this one. I'm with the 18%. It is slightly disturbing, not because BRICS is an economic powerhouse. It's a very loose alliance, like the enforcer was saying, with a lot of weak countries making up one, I guess you could say, somewhat powerful group. Calling it powerful is really a bit sort of overstating it. It's really sort of still weak, even with this larger alliance. So the only problem is, though, is if they all band together and decide to try to overthrow the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency, that could be an issue. But the BRICS dollar, which is what that would be called, is a very weak concept on its face, and it's not super easy to replace the U.S. dollar as the world currency. It's really hard to do that, and you can't just simply flip a switch and switch over to this new brand new currency, because most people probably aren't even going to want to accept it, and even if they do, it's not going to be useful with the United States, which is obviously one of the world's biggest trading partners. So I would say I'm with the 19%. It's slightly disturbing, but BRICS is very weak. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that BRICS is very weak. I actually would have to say, folks, I don't really view them as a threat. I actually view them more so as a weak joke, because a lot of people like to overstate what BRICS is capable of. BRICS is not a military alliance. So I don't know why people are saying it's a military threat, because it's not a military alliance. It's an economic alliance similar to that of the European Union. And the European Union has no existent military framework inside of it, no matter how much people will like for that to be, or people in the European Union would like that to be. There really isn't any existent military alliance that is formed through the European Union. That is formed through NATO instead. BRICS is very similar. It's not a military alliance. It is a largely economic alliance, and that's it. And as a matter of fact, it's a weak one. I saw some people saying, well, BRICS has a great deal of the most successful emerging economies in the world. And really quickly, I actually went and pulled up all of the GDP figures for all of the countries in BRICS, and let's break that down really quickly and see if that's true. South Africa's economy has been stagnating ever since the economic recession of 2008, and it's practically gone nowhere over the past, 16 years at this point. So quite literally stuck in the mud. India actually does have a rapidly growing economy. China has quite literally stagnated and literally flattened out over the past few years. Russia's economy has flattened out since the economic recession or economic depression of 2008 and has pretty much never recovered. And Brazil is also the same. So out of all of these countries, the only one that is actually having any kind of an emergent, I guess you could say, success or possibility of success is India. Every single other one of them has pretty much flattened out or completely face planted ever since 2008. None of them are really going anywhere. And China was going somewhere until the whole, that thing in Wuhan with the soup, and then their economy pretty much flattened out, and now they're not going anywhere. So generally, they're not going to be going anywhere. BRICS is not that big of a threat. Also, we have to remember that a lot of these people want to kill each other. Like, that's something that a lot of people are kind of overlooking. South Africa and Brazil have nothing to do with any of the other BRICS members. They're practically on their own. India hates the shit out of the Chinese, and the Chinese also hate the shit out of the Indians. It's because of the whole territorial claims they have near to the area of Tibet. The Chinese and the Indians go up there in the mountains, and because of this treaty that bans the use of firearms, they beat each other to death with clubs and spears and everything. It's pretty barbaric looking stuff, but it's generally so that way they don't end up getting into a whole full-blown war up there, and that's why they beat each other with the clubs and the spears and everything. But beyond that, they absolutely hate each other. So we do have to understand, folks, that BRICS is not some kind of a magical economic monolith like that of the European Union. It is more so a loose economic alliance. And because of that, we can exploit that a great deal here in the West. India is the only country in the entirety of the alliance that is showing any kind of economic promise right now. And they're the one in the alliance that is being the most ostracized by the largest economic power, the Chinese. We can take advantage of that. The Indians have already made it fairly clear in prior years that a friendship with the United States is something that they are willing to pursue because the enemy of their enemy is their friend. We're both generally enemies of the Chinese, so the Indians can find common ground with us on that, and we can find common ground with them on that. We can also find common ground with India because they are a provider of cheap labor. And whether people want to say this or not, cheap labor is still a big thing these days. Never will stop being a big thing. Wherever the labor is the cheapest, that's where the businesses and industries are going to go to manufacture their goods. And considering that India has a population of 1.5 billion people, and labor is as cheap as pennies inside of India, a lot of the major manufacturers that are American-owned, that were once manufacturing in China, have been moving over the years to India. That's why you see the Chinese economy is flattening out and India's economy is growing. That's where that growth is going. It's being shifted from China to India by American-based companies. So with that in mind, we have good reason to actually try and align ourselves with the Indians, and they will naturally, through time, shift away from BRICS almost completely, because they're only a BRICS member even right now in name only. They have really no economic dealings with anyone else in the alliance except for Russia buying their petroleum, and the only other times that they have any dealings with the rest of the members, it's not an incredibly good footing. It's actually quite hostile. So we have a great footing right now to actually try and get the Indians on our side and to make sure that we have pretty much the largest power player in the Indian Ocean on our team and not on theirs. So while I definitely agree with the actions of the president in trying to wean the Indians off of Russian oil, I'd also say that we need to follow that up immediately by making it incredibly clear we do not view the Indians as being a part of BRICS. We know that they have a great deal of potential outside of BRICS and could probably have a more promising future as a Western-aligned industrial manufacturer than they would be a member of BRICS. So I hope that addresses that well, at least in my opinion, on what I would believe the foreign policy initiative should be with the Republic of India, because we can actually split them up before they end up becoming an issue, and it wouldn't take too much, at least at this point, to do that. Well, I hope that addresses that the best I can. I also hope that addresses some of the claims that some people are making in the chat that, oh, BRICS is actually a huge economic threat. No, because where's the threat? Like, that's what I'm asking. Where is it? Because if there is a threat, how in the world is it opposed by stagnant economies that have been stagnant since 2008? Like, please, someone who can explain that to me, because it completely eludes me how that could be the case. But nevertheless, I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, folks, it is time for us to actually move on to a little bit of side news for a moment. As many of y'all do know, tsunamis have been hitting Hawaii and the west coast of California a little bit today, and we have been able to hear that there are some larger aftershocks that have been occurring within the area, with some of the tremors ranging from an 4.8 to a 6, pretty much directly off of the coast of the Kamchatka Peninsula. It was actually strong enough that a volcano actually became active on the Kamchatka Peninsula earlier today, which you can actually see right there. So quite interesting. It shook the earth good enough, at least in the area, that this volcano is now active once again. So quite an interesting thing with that. It looks like it's not a good day to be a Russian near the Kamchatka Peninsula. But nevertheless, that was just a little bit of the news in the periphery at the moment. And we are going to be moving on into the rest of our news for the night, which is actually inside of Ukraine itself, and also a small amount of news, a very small amount of it, from the Middle East. But before we move on into that, a lot of people have been talking about that little bit of periphery news, because right next to that earthquake, or the loads of them that have been happening today, is this base right here at Volkovo, which houses Russian nuclear submarines, and specifically attack submarines. And I saw some people say the other day that the submarines are made of titanium, therefore they will not survive. Well, they will survive easily even if they got beached. There's a little bit of an issue with that. That's going off of dated information, because the only titanium-made submarine was the Alpha class submarine pictured right here. These actually were pretty revolutionary. Even for the modern day, they're fairly revolutionary. Here's a picture of one right here, a side profile. Here's a real picture of one. And let's see here. Oh, yes, there were 7 of these completed, 1 canceled, and they were trying to build them all the way up until 1981, and then all of them were retired by 1996. Pretty much been rotting away for the remainder of the decades. Let me see if I can find y'all another picture of the Alpha class. Ah, here we go. There we go. So this is the famous titanium-made submarine of the Soviet Union, and very rarely was it ever in service with the Russian Navy. These submarines were made out of titanium to make them light but incredibly durable, so that way they could end up being the fastest submarines ever made. These submarines could actually go so fast underwater that they could pretty much outpace any surface vessels of the US Navy, and that's why they had a titanium hull. It was just for the reason of speed. Beyond that, these things sucked. They were incredibly loud. Everyone could hear them. So, no point in really even having speed, because you could hear them well enough that they could be tracked down by anti-sub patrols from the air and destroyed that way. Generally, I gotta say, one of the few things the Soviet Union made that actually was cool. I mean, the thing's sleek, and it's pretty clean looking. The lines are pretty nice, and that's about it. Beyond that, it just completely sucked. And also, considering that it only had a 1 propeller shaft, that was loud as hell. Like if y'all have ever heard or wanted to hear the sound of an Alpha class submarine underwater, there are recordings of it out there, and it actually sounds like some people underwater with trash cans, and they're slamming drumsticks inside of them the whole time it's running. It's incredibly loud. Completely defeats the point of having a nuclear-powered submarine. Generally, they're supposed to be quieter around the clock, because diesel electrics aren't always quiet, and usually they're incredibly loud, especially when they have to snorkel and run the diesel engines. So not really a great thing, but this is the only submarine that was ever made in the Soviet Union and was ever in service in the Russian Navy that had a titanium-made hull. The rest of them are made with conventional materials, because titanium proved to be incredibly expensive, and the machining expertise needed to craft an entire submarine with a double titanium hull is pretty much impossible. Like, even by modern standards, it's very difficult, and especially for the industrial standards of the time in the Soviet Union, pretty much impossible. So all of these were retired by 1996, and they've been rotting in port for decades since. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least a little bit of information with that, because I saw some people say that the other day. These are steel-hulled submarines, but even still, they're going to be fairly durable, so if they do get beached or slam into something, it's not like it's going to completely destroy the sub outright, but it will cause a significant amount of damage, and they will have to effect a great deal of repairs to try and even get these things seaworthy again. And then conducting repairs on those subs will be incredibly difficult, because they're hundreds, if not over 1,000 miles away from any port that could ever effect those repairs to a good degree. So with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least on the part of those subs. But Matthew, what are people thinking about the condition of those subs, and what are you thinking as well?
All right, so today, this submarine base right here was apparently hit with 5 earthquakes, ranging all the way up to a magnitude 6 and all the way as low as a magnitude 4. So 5 earthquakes that are pretty sizable today, so that's a pretty big deal. But what are your thoughts about the status of the Russian submarines at this base? 37% said the subs are probably fine, while 31% said the subs are likely damaged, and 22% said it's a 50-50 chance that they might have been damaged. And I would be very surprised if the Russians left the submarines docked at this port. I would assume they probably took these things and sent them out into the open water the moment they heard this earthquake taking place. And also they knew that aftershocks were coming. So to leave them moored there, potentially to get more damage or either damage for the first time, I would say the likelihood of that is probably very, very low. Now, the damage to the port itself, I'm sure there is some damage there. There probably has to be, because obviously there are waves coming into that port, even though it is protected by the little eddy that goes out into the, I guess you could say the Bay Area. It is protected somewhat. I'm sure there is some damage, but unfortunately, we don't have any video or picture evidence of it because I believe the town that's close to Kamchatka or Kamchatka itself is a closed town, which is not actually inhabited by, I think, normal people. I think it's just the military that's there with this port, I believe. But so I would say generally the subs are probably fine. They're probably not even at the port right now, and they've probably already left. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say even if they were in port or whether they were underway when it occurred, there really is no threat posed to these submarines. I would have to be with a 37%. The submarines are pretty much just fine. Subs are generally pretty well built in general, because if like the immense pressures for a submarine to be around 1,000 feet in depth in the ocean is so significant, and such a severe stress on a pressure vessel like that, that it would be pretty much impossible to damage them by a wave, maybe pushing them around or bumping them into a pier at several, maybe 3 or 4 knots speed. That would be pretty difficult to damage a submarine that significantly or to completely destroy them in that sort of an action. So generally, I would say these submarines are probably just fine. Like, even if they were in port, nothing really happened to them. They're probably fine. If you hear of anything, any pictures coming out of Volkovo, and they actually show damage, color me shocked. I just don't think anything's going to happen like that. So I think they're okay. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, in my opinion. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news for the night, which we still have a lot of it, especially coming out of Ukraine today, and of the Special Forces raids that were conducted onto Russian coastal forts near to the area of the Crimean Peninsula, which were wild to see today. But before we get into all of that, I do want to make sure that we take a couple of questions from the chat, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so our first super chat question of the night goes to none other than Old Warrior, a channel legend who always supports the channel. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, for always throwing in that support, this time a $20 support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. He said it might be a busy week for you two if those tariffs kick in against China and India, and stock up on coffee and take one from the chat.
I gotta say, it might actually be a somewhat busier week. We don't know how hostile the Chinese are going to get if that happens, because they were starting to get a little heated back in the day when all that was happening for a short while, and then it was all rescinded. So I don't really know how that's going to be going against the Chinese, but I do know that the Indians are probably not going to be too big of a deal, or at least I'm thinking that they won't be. If they end up becoming a bigger deal, I'll actually be surprised by that. But still, a big thanks to you for the support, Old Warrior. We will make sure to stock up on coffee, so that way we could be ready to cover this crazy week that's coming up. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat. And so what do we got from the live chat, Matthew, in honor of Old Warrior?
And this one goes to Kendrick, who said, do you think that India will tariff all pharmaceuticals that the USA imports? Now, Kendrick, here's my thing. We shouldn't be manufacturing our pharmaceuticals in India. I'm just saying that should be something that we have entirely in-house in the United States. The fact that we outsource pharmaceutical production is insane to me, because if, for example, if we got at odds with one of these countries and all of a sudden that supply chain fell apart, pharmaceuticals is something that we can't live without. That's not something that's discretionary. It's not like stuff off of Temu. That's stuff that's life-threatening if you can't get it. So, honestly, shame on us for even doing that and manufacturing them there. But I would say, personally, in my opinion, I think that India probably would not do that because they know how detrimental and how serious that would be. That's probably one thing they probably wouldn't do. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I would also have to say that's one of the few things I would say seems to be important enough that shouldn't be made in a foreign country. I don't know why it's always been outsourced, but it is. And also, I find it a little bit shocking that those pills are up to sanitary standards. But beyond that, I would have to also say, or add on to that for that matter, that I don't know if the Indians would want to tariff that, or if they would. That generally probably is an economic venue that they have to be able to get back at the United States if they wanted to, and it's not really doing them any harm. It's going to be doing the United States far more harm, at least on a domestic political perspective, if the price of all pharmaceuticals started to skyrocket because of that. But that is still a a little bit crazy that we're having to consider that. That's actually a good point on how the Indians could retaliate, but I'm having a feeling that we probably won't get to that point, especially with the Indians, because the Indians are most likely going to back off and start buying their petroleums and oils from the Middle East or from the United States instead, which shouldn't be causing them that much additional economic duress than it would have to get it from Russia. So that's generally my 2 cents. I don't think it'll end up coming to that, but if it does, then that could start causing some pretty serious issues. But still, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support, Old Warrior, and helping this channel to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Wantan Quadruple 8, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Wantan, as well, for also being a longtime channel supporter, and we appreciate that very much. He said, I'm thinking we are way past diplomacy, and I don't believe Russia will back off this time like they have in the past, for example, Crimea. And do you guys think the U.S. really thinks that tariffs will stop them, or that this is a pre-war move, an LSA? And also, Wantan, the big deal is not really the tariffs necessarily. It's the secondary sanctions that are going to be put on the Russians, because the point of secondary sanctions is to totally cut off Russia's energy exports to a degree that's so severe that it causes the Russian economy to come collapsing down. Because like the enforcer mentioned, they are a monolithic economy. They rely primarily on energy exports. So if you attack that and that starts getting eroded away because of secondary sanctions, that is something that could literally nosedive the Russian economy into a free fall within a couple of months or less, unless someone like China comes along and saves them, which it looks like they probably will, which was my prediction the entire time, that China probably would bankroll them. Then they might be somewhat okay if China comes along. But that was my thing. I've been saying the whole time, we've been running polls on this for months. I said that China is not going to let Russia collapse. And it turns out, what is China doing? They're not going to let them collapse, because they're starting to ramp up their oil purchases. And also they're telling the U.S., we're going to keep buying it no matter what. And also now India is also buying it as well, which is the second largest purchaser of Russian oil. So between those two countries and also Turkey as well, it's very possible that secondary sanctions on Russian energy might not have the effect we were hoping for. And it might allow the Russian economy to keep on running and sort of negate the effects of those sanctions, which could be a problem for U.S. interests. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my honest opinion, I think that we're largely past diplomacy at this point. That's generally what the sanctions are even about, is that we're beyond diplomacy, and we pretty much just have to punish the Russians for not being interested in any diplomatic actions. I would have to say yes. To that, I think that it is going to generally end up leading to a larger conflict, because of the Russians do start to largely financially collapse because of that, or start to get in even worse financial straits because that they may see no other option rather than lash out the full way and either end up ceasing to exist, because in their minds they're going to cease to exist either way. So that may be what they're actually shooting for, at least from what I can tell at the moment. So I generally would have to say, I think that the tariffs aren't really going to stop them per se, at least at the moment, because they seem adamant on keeping this going no matter the damage or the consequence. It's only going to end up possibly driving the war to a quicker end, whether the Russians wanted to or not. That's generally what I'm thinking. Also, really quickly, before we move on to the next one, I saw someone say, how will this hurt America? Speaking about the whole pharmaceutical side of things, with most of them being manufactured in India. So let me help out those who may not be able to connect dots. So here in America, speaking about domestic politics, and we're not going to speak about it on the left or the right, I'm just going to speak about it being a big issue. The cost of healthcare in America is a very big issue because it's extremely expensive for most people. And also, even with insurance copays hardly cover anything. So generally, it's wildly expensive for a lot of people. So with that in mind, it's been a huge push by both political parties over the past decades to try and lower the cost of healthcare. You could see that through multiple actions. Just look at them. I mean, the Affordable Medicare Act of 2012 was an extension of an attempt at making healthcare cheaper. The lowering of the price of insulin, or putting insulin price caps. Endless sorts of examples of both political parties trying to lower the cost of medicines, or generally the cost of healthcare, with medicines and pharmaceuticals being a fairly big part of that for your average everyday American. Now, let's say on a domestic political level, speaking for both parties involved, that the Indians tariff or completely embargo the sale of pharmaceuticals to the United States. So that means that the companies that were not producing those pharmaceuticals that were importing to the United States are not affected by that, are now the only ones importing a supply of any pharmaceuticals into the United States. This means that the demand has remained the same, but the supply has significantly dropped, meaning that as a result of that, the prices are going to skyrocket. This means that it's going to cost a lot more for people to get their average pharmaceuticals, or there's going to be an extreme shortage of pharmaceuticals. That's going to end up causing a lot of people to get pretty pissed off in the country, a lot of people to possibly suffer some form of medical issues because they're not able to get their medications or pharmaceuticals that they need, and that could start to cause a lot of domestic political upheaval for one party or the other. And generally, that always goes to whoever's party is the majority at the moment, so that can end up causing issues. So generally that's the actual answer as to why that would be an issue. And then of course that person just got banned because apparently they're a little bit too goofy to be able to understand stuff like that. But that's generally the kind of impact. It has really no impact on the economy at large in any major way, but it has an impact on, quite literally, the quality of life of everyone in the country who has to get prescription medications or any kind of pharmaceuticals. So that would be quite significant. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least from what I would know. But with that, I hope that also answered your question, or the live, well, actually your question directly, Wantron One Ton Quadruple 8, because folks like you have helped this channel to keep on running through the years, and we've got to massively thank each and every one of y'all for y'all's incredible support, because y'all help this channel to be possible and help us to keep covering the news day in and day out. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. Hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news.
All right, so this one goes to Vaughn McKenzie, who puts in a 10, and thank you very much as well for that support. They said coffee fund, and thank you for all the hard work that keeps me and keeps my daughter informed in a way she understands.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and the kind words, Vaughn McKenzie. And thank you for enjoying us covering the news. I try and make it as well informed as I can on my end, and Matthew also does a very good part on the analysis on his end. I'm glad to know that a lot of people find our work to be pretty good and fairly understandable. I try and make everything as understandable as it can be, because the truth is that anyone who makes this stuff sound complicated is just trying to make themselves feel smart. It can be explained in a very simple way, or a way that's easy to explain, and there's a lot of comparable sorts of situations that we can draw from to explain what's going on now. And so I'm happy to know that we are able to do that, and I got to thank you so much for really appreciating that, both you and your daughter. And I got to thank you for supporting our coffee fund as well, because it helps us to be able to keep drinking the coffee that we need to be able to have our little brains work at 9 million miles an hour, so that we can keep this thing going every night. Matthew's brain's been working so hard, he's got a massive headache today.
It's just weather. Whenever this weather like turns like a really bad thunderstorm, like in our area is thunderstorming, the pressure change always almost triggers a really bad migraine for me. And today was one of those days. And thankfully, though, believe it or not, the caffeine actually helps to like ward off the headaches for me. So it's slightly been like cut down with a little bit after drinking the coffee, but it's still there a bit. But I tell you, that pressure change is a doozy.
I would have to say I personally am never affected by weather changes, thankfully, because it, for some reason, it just doesn't really bother me too much. But I do know people who are bothered by it, like Matthew, and it's always tough for all of those folks. Also, I see some people talking about different kinds of stuff in the chat. And really quickly, I just got to make sure to balance the plane, because I see some people trying to make my comments about the whole pharmaceutical thing political. Government regulation, or the lack thereof, is a case-by-case basis kind of a thing. Because I see some people saying the government needs to regulate everything, and I see a lot of people saying that the government needs to deregulate everything. Me, personally, being a historian and having a history degree and studying a lot of American history, and generally really any history at all, practically beyond the 1600s onwards, I can tell y'all that regulation is a good thing sometimes and a really bad thing others. It really just depends, because the American agricultural industry would not exist if it was not for government regulation, like the dairy industry, the cattle and beef industry, and so on and so forth. A lot of those industries would have died off back in the 30s if there was not any sort of a government regulation that stepped in. On the other hand, government regulation can end up causing a lot of issues, like for the railroads, which are no longer regulated, but then that caused issues of its own. So there generally isn't a clear answer. Like, I just want to make that a little bit clear. There isn't really a clear answer. And also, I don't really want people trying to come into the chat and try and say that there is a clear answer and get into the whole political thing of whether the government should regulate everything or not. Because my point in talking about the pharmaceutical side of things was to just explain the kind of leverage that the Indians may have on a diplomatic level if they wanted to against the United States and its tariffs. But generally, folks, I just got to be a little bit honest with y'all here. There never really is a clear answer to anything that happens in domestic politics. That's why you have half of the country that is more so left-leaning and another half that's more so right-leaning. If there was a clear answer, everyone would agree on it, but apparently there's not a clear enough answer, and that's why you got half of the country believing one thing and half believing the other. And it's really just more so a matter of preference at that point. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And I got to thank each and every one of y'all once again for the support in this question segment. And I hope I was able to end that off right there, getting everyone's feathers unruffled and ready to hear the rest of the news that we have tonight, because we have a lot of it. But nevertheless, we are going to be moving on into the Middle East for a brief little bit of news. We were able to see that the UN food convoys finally made it into Palestine. And take a look at this, folks. It appears that the food has gone into good hands. Oh, look, it's Hamas, and they stole all the food. That's crazy. Like, it happened, like, literally within hours. Nuts. Well, there goes all the food. Looks like they're not going to be getting
Is the gunfire free, or is that extra?
That's extra. That's added on by Hamas LLC.
Oh, damn. I didn't know you could really, like, swerve a truck quite like that size.
Me either.
It looks like they really care for the people.
It really does look like they care. It's such a great level of care. And to really quickly explain to y'all, this is what generally was happening. So the UN humanitarian convoys came in with the food. The drivers get out of the trucks and they pretty much just leave them, because the truth is that the Gaza Strip is usually the Wild West, and whenever these food trucks come in, it's completely lawless. So they get the drivers out. They pretty much just run away. And after that, Hamas comes up as the civilians are looting the trucks to try and get the food off before Hamas gets to them. Hamas gets to them, tells everyone to get off, and if they don't get off the trucks, they shoot them. And then they hop into the cabs, they get some fighters on board, and they haul ass through the Gaza Strip to wherever Hamas has a stockpile or a storehouse. They throw all of it into the stockpile or a storehouse, and then they take it out and they ration it, and they sell it at the highest prices they possibly can to try and raise more money for Hamas to be able to conduct their terroristic operations through, just to try and explain that a little bit. And they also handed out sometimes limited form as a form of food aid, and they also issued this food to their fighters for free. So that's generally to explain to y'all a little bit what's going on with this. It's actually a little bit similar with how they use food for loyalty, with how North Korea actually uses food for loyalty in the Korean People's Army through the Songbun system. The Songbun system in North Korea actually dictates that the army or the armed forces fighting the resistance of the evil imperialists is above all else, and so members of the military are treated to greater amounts of food in their rations and are treated to better treatment in general, but more so somewhat decent meals compared to what they would be getting as an average civilian. And this is actually what ensures that the Korean People's Army remains loyal to the regime, because in their eyes, being in the military as a part loyal to the regime, they get better treatment. And that's also how Hamas ensures that they continue to get new members. They pretty much starve the Gazan population, and if they ever want any good food, then they need to swear loyalty to Hamas and join them in their ranks as an armed fighter, and then they'll be able to get actual meaningful amounts of food and not get ripped off for it because they're getting it for free. So that's actually how Hamas works, pretty much the identical same way to the North Korean government, just to explain that a little bit. I like the point of
Looks
safety.
like it looks like everybody knows to get the hell out of the way when they see that gang coming. That must tell you that they might have had an incident or two with people jumping in front of vehicles or something.
Oh yeah, they'll just run them over or shoot them. Like that's what they do because they can't stop the trucks. If they stop, they'll probably get overrun. So they shoot anyone or run them over that gets in the way.
So brutal.
Yeah, it's a brutal sort of a system. Now I've never seen that.
That is crazy right there. Imagine if it hits like a rivet or a bump in the road. That thing's gonna flip.
Yeah, I know. Look at that. Why the hell is that
I didn't know
even
those
there?
could go that fast either, man. Like I thought those things were governed. That thing's going like 40 miles an hour.
Dude, it was like booking. I've never seen anything like that. But they just kept coming.
Here's my question. How can they have cell phones with cellular plans, but yet they don't have any food? It's like, isn't a cell phone and cellular plan something that's like considered a luxury, but yet they don't even have the basics of food? Like something like is kind of not adding up there with that.
It's a little bizarre. I don't really know how to explain it. But pretty much just to once again kind of get the whole roundabout thing for all of y'all out there as far as the news coverage goes. The UN food convoys went in. Some civilians got some food, not a lot of it, and then Hamas got about 2/3 of it and ran away with it. So pretty much most of this food went to supplying and further supporting Hamas and making sure that they can eat so that way they can continue to keep up an armed resistance. That's pretty much the basic rundown of what we're seeing. So a little unfortunate with that. And I see some people saying, well, what, should we not give them food? Absolutely not. That'd be barbaric. I mean, we're not barbarians here in the West. The Hamas might be, but we're not. There has to be some sort of a way, though, that there can be some sort of a food distribution center or a hub that can be set up else to where it's not being taken over by Hamas each and every damn time, because it's endless at this point. It's a massive humanitarian situation going on. People are starving inside of the Gaza Strip, but the problem is that we can't get any food in, because even if we do get the food in, Hamas just ends up stealing it anyways. So these people are still starving. So how in the world do we fix it? It's a bit of a tough one. It's just a complete mess at this point. So there has to be some sort of a third party somewhere that we can set up to be able to get these people food to where they can eat, because the Israelis are, of course, not feeding them, and the Hamas forces are not going to let them eat either. So there's really no way for these people to get food at the moment. They're quite literally between a rock and a hard place. So with that, I hope that it kind of addresses the situation the best we can, because I'm not going to be one of those people who are going to be a barbarian, because I don't get people like that who are barbarians who are like, hey, let them starve. I'm like, we're not barbarians. We're Americans. We're civilized people. They have to eat. That's a basic understood sort of a fact. So we have to figure out a way to get them food, because they're not getting food either way. If we just drop it off in there to them, Hamas steals it and they get none, and the Israelis aren't giving them either. So what do? We've got to find out some way to set up some sort of a system to where they can access the food, but the Hamas also isn't able to steal it, and the Israelis are not going to protest against it. So a little bit tough on that one. But anyways, with that, we are going to be moving on into northern Syria near Latakia, where we were able to confirm that there were some heavier strikes that were going on around the area by the Israeli Air Force, which we're going to be seeing in this clip right here if it loads. And for some reason, it's not really loading. We'll be moving on from that one then, and we'll be moving on to this clip.
I think Twitter's having a slight outage. Give it a second, it should load. It takes a little bit longer than usual.
All right, and so we'll give it a little bit of a second. How's everyone doing tonight? Are y'all doing well? How's your families, everyone? I hope your families are doing incredibly well. And I see that a lot of people are talking about, let's see. Alarm Goose. I'm not trying to be a monster, but they aren't getting the food. Don't send food until you find a way to make sure that they get it. That's generally what I'd have to say. It's not that hard to make sure that they get it. You just have to give responsibility to some group like the United Nations to set up a food distribution point. Because while the United Nations can't do a damn thing, they still can run a food distribution point or a small base or an outpost inside the area that serves as a food distribution point and try and make sure that the Gazan civilians are actually able to get some food some way, because otherwise they're getting nothing. So eventually, this will load, folks. This will load. It's almost loaded. Would you look at that, folks? It's a damn near miracle. It's about to load. Oh.
It's loading in like it's dial-up or something. It's loading in one little part at a time. Oh, look, it's finally here.
And there you all are, folks. It took as long to load as that picture of the black hole that NASA got in the telescope. But there it is. That's the explosion at the Brigade 107's ammunition dump in the Jabla countryside of the Latakia governorate in Syria. We're going to be skipping the second clip because that's going to take about another 5 hours to get on dial-up. So we're going to be moving on beyond that one. And we're going to be moving on into Russia and the Ukraine war, as we were able to hear that the Russian Federation has made it clear, and this loaded just fine. Confusing. The Kremlin has confirmed that it will not yield. Here's a statement from the Rat confirming that today.
Мы достаточно долго живем под огромным количеством санкций, и наша экономика функционирует под огромным количеством рестрикций. Вот, поэтому, конечно, определенный иммунитет у нас уже выработан на этот счет. И мы продолжаем фиксировать все заявления, которые поступают от президента Трампа, от других международных представителей на этот счет.
So we get pretty clear that they're just going to keep going on because sanctions don't bother Russia. It's not like the economy is collapsing or anything, which it is. But moving on from that, we also got to see a Ukrainian drone apparently fell a little short and into a lake in the Bryansk Oblast. Давай, блядь, еще тран. We see it up there.
Охренеть, я первый раз вижу.
Oh, look at that. Раз visa. Oh, what's
It's
happening?
the rat drone. Oh, damn. Nemo got blasted that day.
Блядь.
They'll never find that other fish. You know, that one they were searching for the whole time, his son.
Man, they'll never find them. They'll never find them. He's gone for good, I tell you. He's gone for good. But moving on from that and on into the Kyiv city area, we also got to see the Russians were attacking Kyiv overnight. We have several clips of that. Here's one of the first ones. This is right near to a Kyiv metro station. We have not been able to get any casualty reports overnight. Hopefully they will be minor or low. Moving on from that clip and on to our next one.
Oh.
Once again hitting residential buildings throughout the city. And moving on from that and on to our next clip, we can see this one right here. This is showing one of the impacts within the area. But moving on out of those, we also got another one of another close impact near to one of the cameramen inside of Kyiv that were filming the attack. And hopefully we'll be able to get that loaded up for y'all here. This one's appearing to have a little bit of trouble. It's a little slow, but still, we'll be waiting to see it eventually loads. Actually, this is a duplicate, so unfortunately I didn't get the other one. But beyond that, we also were able to hear that according to some statements of the Ukrainian government today, Ukraine is incredibly close to having its own ballistic missiles, according to Defense Minister Shimhal, which it appears I'm going to have to start updating my names because I forgot that Rustem Umerov is no longer the Minister of Defense. So moving on out of that news and on into our location unknowns, we also were able to see a Ukrainian soldier with a Polish pure manpad. Take a look at this. Pretty cool.
That goes hard right there. Feel free to screenshot it. Feel free to send it to your friends, family. Charge them some extra rent to see it,
We also saw the Ukrainians demining the smart way. Yoink. And look, that mouse ran out.
Oh, that rat threw it off. Damn, that's a strong rat. They build them different.
Bro, that rat was like, let me go. Yeah. I got to get the hell out of here. Like, and it went running away. But anyways, very nice to see. It appears that a mouse actually burrowed under that landmine. Not really smart for that mouse, but, you know, still a great way to get rid of the mines. Nevertheless, we also got to see the Russian casualty report for the day, which wasn't really incredibly high, actually. Troop losses are quite low. The 7-day average is now 996. No, only days below 900 in 2025 are May 22nd and April 21st, and then May 5th of 2024 and earlier. All categories are below the 7-day average except for artillery, meaning that losses were not as high as we usually see them over the course of the day. But 890 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 1 APC, 67 supply trucks, 1 main battle tank, 30 artillery pieces, and 100 drones. All in all, a pretty good day. Not that bad at all, but still not the greatest that we've seen. Moving on from that and down into the Black Sea for a little while, we also got to see the Ukrainian armed forces were conducting some very interesting raids today, including this one on a Russian fortress built on top of an abandoned oil platform or an oil drill out in the Black Sea near to the Crimean coast, which we can see in this clip right here. I gotta say, that guy down there, he's being thrown around.
Just like sped up or something? Like, surely it's not this violent.
Oh, this is sped up quite a good bit.
I was about to say, man, they're taking a thrashing if that's not being sped up.
Oh, what's that? What's that little burning fire out there on the horizon? Oh, you see them preparing to attack the rig. We see them in the darkness here just kind of looking around. I can't really tell you what you're looking at because it's pitch black out there, but there's the Russian oil rig that's been turned into a fortress in a sense, and they're now pulling up on it. I pull up, and here they come. We actually have a drone flying around getting some surveillance for them. How kind of them. We now see the Special Forces guys getting a little bit closer as another Ukrainian drone comes in, circles the rig, and then slams into the side of it. We see more damage being caused to the rig in the meantime as the Ukrainian Special Forces are closing in. We see them continuing to slam. Ah, bada boom, jigga jigga, bada boom.
And the Russians were operating what off this oil platform right here?
It was apparently some sort of a reconnaissance platform or something along those lines, but not really a lot. It was more so just like a special posting for some Russian naval infantry, and the Ukrainians blew it up anyways. Pretty much just to make a point, because it was only a few miles off of the Crimean coast, near to the area of the Olenivka Peninsula, so it appears that it was really just more so to make a point more than anything. Meanwhile, down here near the Tendrivska Spit, we did get to hear that the Ukrainians spat on that thing. Take a look at it. They sound like Daleks, so we're going to mute them. And we can see them here chit-chatting in their forest garb and regalia as they ride on the ribs. I guess you could say they're about to rib the Russians. Get it? Because they're riding on a rib. But anyways, we can see
have those ribs.
Gotta have them ribs. And some, we'll stop it right there for legal reasons. But beyond that, we see the Ukrainians making it on shore, walking on in. This is on the Tendrivska Spit, by the way. That sounds like some sort of a medical condition. Ah, yes, he has a yellowing of the eyes, Tendrivska Spit. He's got jaundice. Like, that's what it sounds like, almost.
Think about the night vision went hard right there. That guy walking through the dark. That went really hard.
Bruh, that shit went hard. Aw, man. We see them here continuing to show them in the night vision. I see that some people get what we were referencing, so, yeah.
Crazy day in the library. Gotta read the books.
Welcome to the, Cambridge Public Library. I'm going to read you all a book. It's a good one. I call it a classic. Let's get to it. these hoes must be from Iraq, the way they bagged that ass. Moving on from that, and on back to the front. Well, actually, on to Solsk really quickly. We were able to confirm that a decent amount of damage was conducted at Solsk. The drones actually were able to knock out a couple of the lines in the yard, which will probably take a day or two to repair, and also were able to destroy some rail cars as well. Generally, the damage isn't completely debilitating, though. This rail yard is still operational, at least at the time, and we can already see the repairs are being affected to the damaged segments of track. So while it did have some impact on the Russians' supply side abilities, it was incredibly short in duration, so it'll be a small blip on the radar. But moving on from that and on back to the front lines, near to the Kupiansk area, we were able to see the Ukrainians taking down the Rossiyski drone.
Rossiyski drone. These things right here are not lasting like more than 5 minutes these days or something. Look at these things. They look so rinky-dink, like they put it together using like some tubes from Home Depot and some styrofoam or something.
Honestly, man, I think they were. Like, whatever the Russian equivalent of Home Depot is. Meanwhile, near the Severonsky Forest, we also get to see more Russians getting hit by the Signum mail unit. I always got to call him the Sigma male because it's a Gen Z meme of a sort.
What's the Russian equivalent of Home Depot? Shack Repo.
Oh, dude, that was actually a good one, bro. Dude, that one's so...
that's lit on that one.
Bro, that one's so good, your head be throbbing over it, bro, because it was like mind-bending.
I tell you what, my brain is just swelling to the perimeter, full of jokes.
Bruh. That's why your head's hurting. You got to start putting out more sick bars like that, man. Maybe the headache will go away.
Hopefully.
Let's see. Let me do a classic one. You know, some people want to say, "Oh, is he a crook?" Well, I'm not a crook. That's a classic. But anyways, that's the end of the clip right there from the Signum mail unit. And moving on from that and into our next clip near the Severonsky Forest, we also get to see them hitting more Russians with their fiber optic drones.
I see the people like that one. They like that joke right there. They rated a 10 out of 10 on Yelp.
Man, honestly, it was gold. Man, you've had the headache of solitude. It gave you time to think, and you used it well. You used it well.
Nothing like a headache to calm you down. You know what I mean?
Nothing like a headache to debilitate you and to calm the nerves. It's kind of like how back in the day, man, they said, man, nothing like a lobotomy to calm the nerves. And it's like, I think that does more than that. But moving on from that and past the Seversk area where we've seen no offensive action in video and picture evidence today, and down towards the area of Konstantinivka and Toretsk, we were able to see a Ukrainian T-64 BV in waiting. Pretty cool picture. Moving on from that and on down into the city of Toretsk, we also get to see the Ukrainians fighting in the streets of Toretsk.
Tá de azul, tá de azul, tá de azul. Tá de azul? Tá de azul, mas tá passando de... Passou de AK, passou. Passou dois. Passou dois. Passou dois. Tá de azul, o que eu falo? Tô vendo, tô vendo. Calma aí, espera passar o terceiro. Sapeta. Pode dar? Tá de azul. Tá de azul. Tá de azul. Pode dar?
Oh, the firefight is on.
Night. Yeah. What the fuck? Botei aí. Stop! What the fuck, man?
Someone spoke English for like a second.
Freaking English right there, right? He just like hopped out of Ukrainian and just say, "What the fuck?" It's like,
man, it's like that one Chinese guy in that video where he was talking to his boss and he was like pissed. You remember that when he was like,
yeah,
shut that! Like, I was like, whoa! But anyways, we also get to see some archival footage from the Battle of New York. Take a look at this. And I was like, dab bibi.
And I was like, they better not blow up my nuclear shit.
Пизда. Послание. Давай, бля.
Oh.
Бать металолома скільки тисяч. Сука! Сука, блядь. Як я заїбався з цим чертом тяжелим
This is the
бігати.
more pots and pans edition.
Man, I'm telling you. But that's the end of that clip right there, and still quite nice to see. Moving on
Oh,
from that.
also, before you move on, by the way, just to address this, because a lot of people are bringing this up in the chat, the people that are saying that an F-35 crashed in California, you are actually correct. I have verified that apparently it looks like in Kings County, California, a U.S. Navy F-35C Lightning II crashed near Naval Air Station Lemoore in California. So it does appear, we do have video evidence here apparently showing it engulfed in flames. And it looks like the condition of the pilot's currently unknown. So yes, it looks like we've most likely lost an F-35, or it's either extremely badly damaged to the point where it's not fixable. It's kind of hard to tell at the moment.
Interesting. But usually those sorts of things happen from time to time. Not really that big of a deal. If we start to lose lots of them in a week, that's going to be a big deal. But generally, we always have some sort of attrition in peacetime of aircraft and airframes. It's generally a somewhat normal thing. But moving on from that, we were able to hear that unfortunately the Russians did move forward 5 yards today and have officially once again re-entered the city of Pokrovsk, at least at the moment. So it does look like that's once again an ongoing thing. They did that technically a couple of days ago, and then we're pushed right back out, but it looks like they were able to push back in about the 50 yards needed to technically be back in Pokrovsk. Outside of that, and on the Zaporizhzhia front, we also get to see some Russians getting slammed down here as well. Take a look at this.
Also, by the way, it's kind of hard to tell if the F-35 crashed into the ground or if it landed and then it somehow caught fire after it landed or something to that effect. It's kind of hard to tell from the footage. This is literally just a still photo of it. So waiting for more details to come out. But also, yeah, like a lot of people are mentioning, though, the big question is what's happened to the pilot, because the planes are replaceable, but the people aren't. So not really sure what happened to him right now at this point.
In a very strenuous situation. Hopefully we'll be able to hear that the condition of the pilot is all right. But we also got to see that a Russian flag planted on a railroad bridge in the Kherson Oblast was blown away by the Ukrainians today. The Ukrainians never let a Russian flag just sit idly by, so they blew it to pieces and got rid of it. But that was generally all of the frontline news and footage that we were able to get from Ukraine today. And moving us on out of this area, it's now time for us to move on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1253 of the war. So, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці і українки. Сьогодні було кілька хороших доповідей. Щойно керівник ГУР по деяких наших операціях, деталі не публічні. Як ми вчора і домовлялись з урядом, розпочалось перезавантаження АРМА. АРМА – це інституція, в якій активи на десятки мільярдів, і це російське майно, конфісковані активи, це активи підсанкційних осіб. Всі активи мають працювати максимально на оборону та на стійкість нашої держави. Прем'єр-міністр України Юлія Свириденко та міністр оборони України Денис Шмигаль виконали доручення щодо контрактів 18-24. Ми значно розширюємо коло людей, які можуть доєднатись до Сил оборони. Це мотивовані люди, це молоді люди. І саме на технологічну передову, на використання дронів. 2 роки контракт. Всі бонуси контракту 18-24 дуже хороші, виплати і повне навчання. Ну, як це і потрібно. Працювати будемо через бригади. Також урядовці розширили можливості для наших виробників зброї, наші можливості залучати кредити, щоб виробництва давали більше і більше продукту, більше і більше результату для наших сил оборони. І третє, вагоме. Продовжуємо працювати з партнерами щодо постачання зброї. Міністр доповів про комунікацію у форматі «Рамштайн». Ми зберегли цей формат. Я дуже вдячний всім нашим партнерам за його дієвість. Погодив також сьогодні основні принципи угод наших з Америкою. Україна, Сполучені Штати по зброї. Масштабні угоди, і я говорив про них з президентом Трампом, і я дуже розраховую, що ми зможемо все це виконати. Це точно посилить обидві наші країни, а отже, наших союзників, наших партнерів. Дуже цінуємо принципові кроки Америки для тиску на Росію заради миру. Саме зараз треба діяти, щоб примушувати Росію до миру. Так, Москва хоче воювати і далі. Але все питання у потенціалі. Все питання в ресурсах на війну, в грошах. Саме тому санкції корисні. Саме тому тиск може спрацювати. Ми готуємо також зараз нові наші розмови та нові наші зустрічі з партнерами на різних рівнях. Мета одна – посилити позицію України та всіх, хто прагне миру. Ще кілька важливих речей. Доповідь голови Служби безпеки України Василя Малюка. Я хочу подякувати за протидію російським агентам та російським диверсантам. Є сильні результати. Кожен, хто обирає сторону окупанта, має відчути справедливу силу українського правопорядку. Доповідь головкома Сирського. Покровський напрямок, інші наші напрямки. На Донеччині, також Харківщина, наша Сумщина, південні напрямки. Є підрозділи, які варто відзначити. Воїни 71-ї окремої єгерської бригади ДШВ, саме на Сумщині, вони дуже ефективно знищують російські сили. 225-й окремий штурмовий полк, саме цей підрозділ, звільнив Кіндратівку Сумської області. Покровський напрямок. Також хочу подякувати за впевненість воїнам нашої 25-ї окремої повітряно-десантної бригади та 14-ї бригади Національної гвардії України. Я хочу подякувати всім, хто б'ється та хто працює заради України. Кожен день нашої оборони – це інвестиція наших людей, багатьох українців і українок у незалежність України. Вистояти зараз, захистити нашу державу, захистити українські національні інтереси – це гарантувати, що Україна є і буде незалежною. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1253 of the news from around the world. And that is going to be moving us on into the second segment of this stream where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks. Is it a good segment? Oh, it's a great segment. We get to talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. We get to talk to the super chatters and the live chatters. We get to do everything up and down. But before we get on into that, I do understand that another major question has been asked of many of y'all about the Kremlin claiming it doesn't care about American sanctions. And before we move on into that, I just gotta say, Gotti just got banned. So that was actually kind of funny to me. For some reason, I was like, bruh, Matthew Gotti on the username named Gotti. I was like, bro, what a coincidence. But nevertheless, it is time for us to move on into that question. So, Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well? Would you like to key us in?
All right, so to circle back to this news story right here, the Kremlin is claiming at this moment that it does not care about potential U.S. sanctions that might be coming at the end of the 10-day deadline, and instead they insulted the U.S. president yet again. And what are your thoughts? 50% said Russia is bluffing the U.S. officials, while 38% said Russia knows it'll be saved by China, and 6% said it seems illogical for Russia to say that, but we need some more information. And I don't believe the Russians are bluffing here. I believe they've come to a backroom agreement with China to ensure their economy is not going to falter, even if secondary sanctions are placed on the Russian economy. Now, that's a big ask. But at the same time, though, I am still of the belief that if China sees that Russia is about to collapse, they most likely will bankroll the Russian economy at least long enough to keep them solvent, so that way they can keep operating as the Russian Federation with Putin at the helm, because Putin is of course friends with Xi, at least for convenience sake. They're friends for right now, and Xi wants to keep it that way because he needs an ally. So I'm with the 38%. I think Russia believes they'll be saved by China, and I think China will probably oblige that just to piss the United States off. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the Russian Federation is largely bluffing the United States, because even if the Chinese remain open to buying Russian oils, there's only so much more that they can buy, because according to prior statements, they've built up their strategic stockpiles so large that they won't really rely, or they don't even need any petroleum imports for the next several years if necessary. So there really isn't a lot of room for them to just buy up Russian oil and then put a lot of the refined fuel products or the raw crude in any kind of reserves, because those reserves are pretty much completely non-existent at this point to be able to put them in, that are empty right now. The Turks and the Indians will most likely turn away from Russian petroleums and oils, especially, oils and gases, especially if a lot of pressure is put on them. And so that will start to cut down a lot of Russia's customers to the point it's just China, and China can only buy so much. So I would generally say, for that reason, I actually think the Russians may be bluffing, and that their economic life might be significantly decreased as a result of these crippling sanctions and tariffs that'll be coming around the corner. It won't end up destroying them literally within weeks or months, but it still will be within that 2-year time frame that we've been talking about prior. That's what I would believe, at least at the moment. So I'd actually have to be with the large majority, or the 49%, that said that the Russians are bluffing on that. I'd also have to agree. I think that they're largely bluffing, at least for now, because there's still going to be significant damage because of these tariffs and sanctions. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And also, really quickly, apparently the pilot did safely eject, so that's good news to hear. The pilot's alive, so that's great. Apparently a part of a naval training squadron, and some sort of a accident that occurred in the training squadron that resulted in the loss of the aircraft. So with that, we are on to the greater questions themselves. And I understand, Matthew, that we have quite a lot of them. But before we get on into that, I do want to say a big thanks to everyone for watching so far tonight. We had 14,000 live viewers at the peak, and we've had about 92,000 people here since the stream started in less than 2 hours. We're more than happy to have all of y'all here. And we hope y'all been enjoying the stream tonight as well. And if y'all have, please make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. This channel seems to be growing slowly yet surely over every single year. It was only 3.5 years ago that the channel started covering world news daily with about 100 subscribers. And just a few years later, we're now almost to 500,000 subscribers. We're not that far away. And not only that, the streams went from having, I think it was 5 live viewers at the max on its first night. I think it was less than that. I think it was 2 live viewers technically on its first night. Went from having 2 live viewers to now we have a whopping 14,000 tonight, and that's considered a normal night these days. So if you'd like to be a part of the growing community here on this channel that's listening to global news and foreign policy developments day in and day out, please make sure to subscribe, because we try our best to keep it all apprised 6 days a week, pretty much every single day of the week, including the short war videos, which makes it a weekly, daily coverage of what major events are happening around the world each and every single day. And so with that, a huge thanks to all of y'all so much once again so far for watching. And with that, we are on to the actual questions themselves. And thank you so much, everyone, for the kind words as well.
Yes, indeed. And moving right into our Super Chat questions right now. Moving into our first one. This one goes to Andrew Barbro. And Andrew put in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support and also helping to keep the channel running. And Andrew said, because you are what you are, and we are what we are. And take one from the chat.
In the words of Popeye, I am what I am. Whoa! But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. I bet you Matthew would have laughed at that if he didn't have a headache, because that whoa usually gets him. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much for the support and the kind words, Andrew Bobro, because we are what we are. We am what we am. And I got to thank you massively for enjoying this channel and supporting it, because the folks like you who go over your way to support this channel, you help us to make this thing possible day in and day out. I got to thank you incredibly for that, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to eat our giant cans of spinach every day and then, have tumors for arms. We just wouldn't be able to do it, and you make it possible, Andrew Barbaro. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the next question. But before we do, though, I do see some people in the chat saying, let's see, oh man, I got a headache too. Yeah, everyone's getting headaches today. I actually almost got a headache during Zelensky's speech. I don't know why. I was like, I could faintly feel it, like the pressure in my head. And I was like, man, I was like, the pressure is getting intense. And then some voice in the corner of the room said, all the cool kids, they're like hot dog man. I said, all the cool kids, you say? And the pressure was really there. All jokes aside, I almost did get a headache. I think it really is the pressure today. Like the pressure changes in the atmosphere from the weather, at least around here, because it's tough. It's tough sometimes. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here, oh my goodness, our next one is a massive 108 Canadian donation. It literally just came in right now from LC39A. And thank you very much, good sir. I said this other night as well, but LC39A has been throwing in crazy support for I think now 3 or 4 days in a row. So a huge shout out for that support once again. And he said, hi boys, and hello to you.
And hi, LC39A. I hope you've been having a good night tonight, and I thank you greatly for watching this channel and enjoying it tonight. I hope you've been enjoying the news segment so far. We're just in the beginning of the question segment now, and I gotta say, a big thanks to you for the massive support. You've actually been buying stock in the VOC with that kind of support over the past several days, and I gotta thank you incredibly for enjoying this channel and supporting it and helping it to keep running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So I gotta thank you massively once again for that huge support. And thank you for checking in and saying hi, boys, tonight, and thank you for throwing in some massive support as well to help us to keep this thing rolling. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And also, with that, we are going to be moving on to the next one, but a massive thanks to you so much once again, because your support has been huge lately and is really helping us to carry on our shoulders the finances of being adults. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and also a huge shout out once again to LC39A for that massive support. And we're moving on to our next one here, which goes to Cookie, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Cookie, for that support as well. He said, my favorite grandsons.
Hey, and I gotta thank you for saying that we're your favorite grandsons. I mean, with our grandparents, we hardly got to know them. So it's great to hear, actually. And I gotta thank you so much for the kind words and helping this channel to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. We wouldn't be able to be the LSA's favorites, sons and grandsons, and we wouldn't be able to be some of the Lee Spring Army's up-and-coming fathers. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible on a day-in and day-out basis. And so with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again. And it looks like Mama's request just became a denial. It looks like, unfortunately for them, they said less jokes and more news. I just don't know why some people come in here and say that sometimes. It's just like, don't you understand? We just did the news for 2 hours. Have a break. Chill down, Mama. Calm down there.
Because turn off that damn spam.
wait. Don't feed the animals, can't you read? Or something like that.
Turn off those lights.
Bro, Mel Blanc was hilarious, man. Honestly, dude. The comedy of just screaming into a microphone was not missed upon the people of the 30s. They had it down. But bro, dude, what was the other one? What was the other one that he did? Quiet! He did that.
Yeah, that
one.
was it.
Yeah, that was a good one. But still, a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Cookie. We're massively appreciative of it. And a big thanks to you once again. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to John Person, who puts in a $50 donation. Also, another massive
Hey!
support. And thank you very much, John, as well, for throwing in that very generous $50 support and helping to keep the channel rolling every single night. And John said, thanks so much for the insight, integrity, and goofiness with reporting the news. And LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying our goofiness. We try and balance it to where we're not just clowns, like honestly, like we used to be. Like I used to just really lean heavily into trying to just get people to bust out laughing. We don't do that too much nowadays. We try and make it a little bit more serious. But thank you for enjoying the insight, the integrity, and a little bit of goofiness that we provide with the jokes and the silliness here and there to cut up the monotony of listening to the news and to make it a little bit more fun. So a huge thanks to you for appreciating that, John Person. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And I also, really quickly, have to take a live chat in your honor, John Person. And I've got to say that someone asked, Growing Buds 420 said, I started watching the live-action Popeye movie starring Robin Williams on YouTube, a movie older than me. Have either of you two whippersnappers seen the 1980 Popeye movie? Oh, yes, we have, because we know the songs, and we make fun of them sometimes, Matthew. You know what I mean? I mean, you know what I mean. You know that one?
Yeah, yeah, I like those.
Bro. Dude, and then there was also that other goofy one, I am what I am, and then he just sang that, like, for 3 minutes. Like, that movie was actually not too bad, but still, it was a little weird. I don't think it was the best movie that fella was in, Robin Williams. I think there was a better one, but we have seen it. We have seen it, and the songs stick in my head, especially the "I'm Mean" song, because he was like, "I had a dream, I was beating myself." We're like, okay, this is just ridiculous. Honestly, it was hilarious. Like most of when you don't watch the movie seriously and you watch it with the idea it is a joke, it is actually a hilarious movie. But still, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running, because you put in a great question, and you supported the channel in the past, so I thought we'd answer that question there, because yes, we have seen it, and it's hilarious as hell. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to David Croton, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, David, for that support as well, and also supporting the channel bigly. And he said, thanks, guys, and every night you guys get me through work tonight in Tennessee.
Tonight in Tennessee, in the great land of Tennessee. I always Tennessee. But beyond that, I gotta say, it's a great thing to know that you're up there in the great lands of Tennessee. We always have heard a great deal of things about Tennessee. We've always heard that the people there, they're green, and they happen to wear their hats on their arms. A little bit of weird custom. I personally never been to Tennessee. I'm just kidding, by the way. We've been through Tennessee. I'm just playing around with you. But I gotta thank you so much for the support. And I got to say, we're more than happy to keep people company while they're working. We know a lot of people listen to this channel almost as a radio show while they're at work. And I love to know that loads of people are watching this channel while they work and continue to be productive members of this great, amazing nation that we call the United States of America, or as they call it in Spanish, Estados Unidos. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, by the way, folks, folks, a city that has been shafted so badly in Tennessee is Chattanooga. Because Chattanooga actually used to be kind of cool, and now it's not. I don't know what happened to it. Because I remember the last time we went through there, you remember it, Matty? It was like abandoned industrial buildings and factories everywhere.
Yeah, it's tough. They got a lot of violence in Chattanooga, and also definitely got a lot of violence in Memphis. Unfortunately, a lot of large Tennessee cities have kind of gone downhill a little bit.
Yeah, they kind of have, like Nashville and like Memphis. Like, I know a lot of people like Nashville, but personally, when I went through there, the whole like strip club billboards on the side of the interstate thing kind of threw me off a little bit about the qualities of the city. And I was like, let's see. There were so many of them. I can't even remember them all, but like it was a little rough up there. I was like, dang, that is rough. As I've always heard growing up, like when you're in Alabama, it's kind of like living in North Korea and everyone goes, oh, it's better across the border in Tennessee. And you're like, really? Like it's like South Korea. And you're like, really? Is it better? And when I finally made it up there, I was like, I don't know. I was like, this is kind of the same almost. But it is what it is. They do have Pigeon Forge though, and Gatlinburg, which aren't really what they used to be either. Like, the last time I went through there, I was kind of a little shocked with what Gatlinburg is now. I was like, oh, like, this is what Gatlinburg is, huh? I was like, that's interesting. Let me see if I can show y'all what it looks like when we were there. This is what it looks like now. This does not at all look like the Gatlinburg I remember, me personally.
Honestly, it looks better than the last time we saw it. Actually, looks like they cleaned it up a bit.
Let's see, we went there in like 2011, so this is actually what it looked like when we were there. And I don't know, back then it just felt like it had more character, and it felt more like refined country, sort of. Nowadays it's kind of like cheap tourist trap attraction sorts of things. And it just doesn't have that feel that it used to have when we went there. And we would ride that goofy ski lift every day. Like, I call it goofy. It was actually really cool. Right here, this wasn't Ober Gatlinburg. This was something else when we rode it. Now it's called. What the hell?
No,
They
Sky
rebuilt
Park.
it! Bruh, it used to look like this.
What happened to it?
Something bad. They rebuilt it into this modern-looking Starbucks place.
Yeah, it turned into like a rusty metal shell of a former self.
Bro, this place looks like it's an internet cafe. And then there was Ober Gatlinburg, which took you up here to this thing, this zoo. I'm trying to see where it is. Is this it? No. Where's Ober Gatlinburg at? Where'd it go?
It's under Gatlinburg now.
Bro, what if it's bankrupt Gatlinburg? Like, what if it's gone? Like, now I'm kind of scared about that because I don't see it anywhere, man. I don't see this and you remember what I'm talking about, right? Let's see.
Ober.
Oh, here we go. The Gatlinburg tram, but it's not a tram though. Why are they lying? Bro, I feel like it was this place up here or over here.
Yeah,
And
what the hell happened to it? I mean, I don't see the tram there anymore. They used to have like these large posts up that hold the cables for them, but I don't even see that either.
What about this? Oh shoot! Wait a minute, it's all the way out here. Oh my god, that's like really far actually. Where in the world's the sky lift thing? Oh wait a minute, it's still there. Oh yeah, it's still there. It's still there. Okay, this was scary actually. Riding this thing, this was actually terrifying. But the top was really cool. We didn't get to see like squat of it though. But I remember we got to see these bears, and I was like, wow, they're black bears. That's cool. They're like little. They're not really that big, but they had all this cool stuff. We didn't get to do squat of it, which is kind of a shame. Like these otters, look at those. They're cute. We didn't get to see any of this. Like we went up there and immediately left. And I think it was it was for like contrived reasons. We didn't do anything around here, but it's a shame. It's really a shame because I wanted to do some stuff up there. Also, Matthew, where in the world's that timeshare thing that like collapsed? Like, do you know where that once was? Was it this one?
I don't really know, to be honest. It could be that, but yeah, the time showdown was a nightmare.
I think it was this one, man, because like there's like some unfinished like foundations and stuff around here. I don't know. It might have been, it might not been. There was some timeshare thing that we got like harassed into going and seeing while we were there. And this was like way back when we were kids. So this was like 15 years ago or so. But there was like some timeshare thing that we were harassed to going to. And I remember we wasted a whole day of our vacation wandering around looking at crappy houses. And I don't even know why. Like, it was pointless. But we did that. And honestly, I don't remember anything of that day. I just remember sitting on the back of a golf cart riding around everywhere in the heat. And like we would just sit out there in this golf cart on the heat. And that was it. That was like the whole day. But anyways, it was a really cool place back in the day. I just feel like it's lost that now because, like, let's see, where's that old pancake place? There was a pancake place somewhere around here, and I remember it for some reason, like, distinctly. And I want to see if I can find if it even exists now. This was kind of near the Little Pigeon River, the West Prong Little Pigeon River. And I think it's gone now, which is a shame, but we'll drop down here. Yes, here we are. See, it's getting like corporatified. There's the aquarium, which is now the Ripley's aquarium. But let me go back to 2011, which is when we went. And this is what it used to look like. It's a totally different thing back then. Like, look, totally different. And then if we
It's a whole another animal way back in the day.
Yeah, so then we fast forward to today. Like, let me just get us looking this way. This is what it looks like now. It just feels fake now.
It looks like a. What they got the Irish flags up over there for?
Oh, like, I don't know, bro. Come out, you black and tans, or something like that. But anyways, I don't know why they have them. Like, it's a little bit of a mystery to me because this is in Ireland. Also, they have another They have another one? That's the whole reason they built this, is that they have another one of those, like, ski lifts.
That's for skiing.
That's for skiing, but from where? It goes up the hill to here. This ain't no skiing place, Charlie. This ain't no skiing. What the hell is this, anyways?
Oh, look, it's
like a Christmas village, almost.
It's a Christmas village.
Huh. I mean, that's not too bad. Like, this actually is kind of neat, like, with the view it has and everything. But, like, the building down there at the bottom, though, it doesn't really blend in. It's kind of, like, cheap looking compared to everything else. Like, it looks like it's made out of, like, fiberglass or something. Hellbender Mountain Coaster. Huh, that actually looks kind of cool.
Hellbending.
Man, they bend in hell. Man, you got soft hands, boy. You ain't ever been down in hell bending reality, boy. Like, man. And then they got a tower here. Oh, that's really cool, actually. You can actually, like, so that's what it looks like. Don't know why they designed it like that. But you can see the whole surrounding area of the mountains, the Appalachians, or the Smokies, as they call them. They call them Smoky because everybody be vaping around here. That's not the real reason. I just want to make that clear before someone quotes me on that. That's not the real reason they call it the Smokies. They call it the Smokies because of the fog. But beyond that, pretty neat. But I just wish it was like it was back in the olden days, you know what I mean? But beyond that, I do have to thank you greatly, once again, for the support, being all the way up there in Tennessee. And I'm glad to know we're able to keep you company while you're working hard. So a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to True Patriot, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, True Patriot, for that $20 support as well. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And I do not see a comment attached to it. It's just a super chat, and that is it. I was trying to click, though. I was trying to see your profile picture there, but it's not letting me click for some reason. But thank you very much, good sir, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you, True Patriot, for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And I gotta say that it's an amazing thing to know that folks like you enjoy this channel and support it. You didn't throw in a comment, but we are still greatly appreciative nonetheless. And we know that you'd have nothing but kind words if you threw in a comment. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. What do we got, Matthew?
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to none other than channel legend BC Skyman, who just arrived just now. He saw Gatlinburg, and he came out to tell us that he saw Gatlinburg, and he put in a $100 donation. And thank you very much, BC, very much for that generous support once again. And we do sincerely do appreciate that, and it's good to see you. He said, I'm late, but better late than never, and lots of memories for me in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. We used to ski often at Ober Gatlinburg, and great job, Enforcers.
Hey, and I gotta thank you massively, BC Scamming. And I gotta say, we only went to Gatlinburg once. And we didn't really do a lot while we were there, come to think of it, Matthew. Do you remember what we did? Because I remember we went and looked at that timeshare thing. We ate some food, and then we rode Ober Mountain up and back. We didn't do anything at Ober Mountain once we got there. And I think that was like it. Like
we actually went there twice. We went the first time. The first time we got there, I can't remember where we stayed at there, but it was like some hotel in the area. We got there and then we ate some breakfast place in the morning, and then we walked up and down the street, and that's when someone snagged us for the timeshare thing. So we went and hung out at the timeshare place pretty much all day at that point. Wasted a whole day on the timeshare thing. And basically the way it works is they basically trapped you there. Like you had to like get their transportation out of there because they brought you up to it. So it was really a whole scam, like really the way it was. But we got out of that, and then we had just enough time to go check out Ober Gatlinburg. And then I think after that we called it a day, and that was our whole time in Gatlinburg, I think.
Yeah, sadly we never really got to do a lot, and and then we were just honestly, it was kind of like insulting how the whole trip went, because on the drive back, we were then regaled with the grand stories of how great Gatlinburg really was, and on both of the trips, I can't even really remember what we even did, because we did, like, nothing. But beyond that, it was an interesting looking place. I remember it because of the little, nearly the creek. It's called a river, but I think it's more of a creek that kind of runs through the middle of Gatlinburg. That was really cool. And they had like all of these neat little like places in there. It was cool. It was really cool. And then we also went we did do one thing. We did do one thing that I do remember quite clearly. We did the Titanic thing. Where is that, though? Let's see. Because once you get down here in the Pigeon Forge, the world opens up. And I'm trying to find... There it is, the Titanic Museum attraction. We went here, and we did this thing. And it's actually looking pretty busted up these days. Like, they're not really... Bro, is it the Titanic or is it the tugs that help the Titanic out to sea? Can't really tell you which one it is. Didn't look like this when we went there. It was, like, really clean looking. It looks better at night, but in the daylight, that thing looks bad. But we went through the Titanic thing. That was a pretty interesting sort of a deal because they actually have real artifacts from the wreck in here, like a couple of them. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And they also give you a card at the beginning of your like tour, and then at the end of the tour, you get to check if you lived or died. And every one of us died, I think, if I remember correctly. So that was kind of a neat thing. But as you'll remember, Matthew, we kind of got rushed through that because there was someone there who didn't really care about it and just kind of did it to scratch it off. So they were like kind of like rushing us through a little bit. Beyond that, it was still fun to do. I mean, it was something to do, you know, rather than the other trips that we had where we did nothing up there. But I gotta say, in general, very nice to hear that you had a fun time up there, because maybe one day we'll be able to go back up to Gatlinburg. I don't know, because with Enforcer HQ 2.0 being in Salt Lake City, most of our stuff's probably going to end up being West Coast oriented at this point. But still, I got to thank you massively for the support, BC Scam, and of course being an old garden and channel legend, and telling us of the amazing tales and stories, or at least a little bit of what you got to see up there in Gatlinburg, because I've heard that a lot of people have great memories of Gatlinburg. It's just that I hardly have any, and we've apparently gone twice. The only other time that we came through is that we were at Asheville and we went to Biltmore, and we did Biltmore for like a day or like two. It wasn't really a lot, and then we ended up driving back from Asheville back through Gatlinburg, but we didn't really stay. Like, we literally drove through it and then left, and that's the only other memory that I have of Pigeon Forge. And that's when I went through, well, Gatlinburg, and that's when we went through, and I was like, dang, this place is totally different now than when we went. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And a big thanks to you so much once again for the kind words and the support, BC Scam, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know that Ripley's place up there? It's like that Ripley's Believe It or Not. Have you seen that?
Yeah, the upside down house and everything.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, they tried to take me to Ripley's, and they told me to believe it or not. Those rude bastards.
Man, I'm telling you, man, those sons of bitches like trying to make you believe it or
Take
not.
it or leave it or something. I said, what do you mean? Take it or leave it? Believe it or not? What kind of rude stuff is that?
Man, I had a bust. But anyways, let's see. Where in the world is it, anyways? Let's see here. There's the Titanic. It's somewhere around here. This is an upside down building. It's kind of a little distinct. Wait, they had it in Gatlinburg, actually, didn't they?
I think it was.
Yeah, here it is, Ripley's. Believe it or not. Man, that building looks totally different now.
Damn, man, it looks like some like haunted. What the hell is that guy doing?
Let's see.
He had the chopsticks out.
Bro, he didn't have chopsticks, bro. He had the whole nail. Like he had like a 9-inch nail.
He was trying to believe it a little bit extra, a little too much. This place looks crazy, though. Honestly, I'm not believing it. I'm going to have to go with the or not.
I'm gonna have to go with the or not as well. Looks kind of macabre, honestly. Yeah. Oh, they got a red box. Oh, look at that. No freaking way. Oh, it's gone now. It's gone, yeah. So, no red box.
I believe it or not, I didn't believe it.
Believe it or not, I'm not buying it. Let's see. Oh, by the way, Matthew, I did show one of the hotels that we were in. We were in the DoubleTree. $91 a night. And back then it was even cheaper. It was like 70 or 60 or something like that. But it wasn't bad, actually. It was pretty nice. I don't really remember a lot.
Do you know why they call it the DoubleTree?
Why did they call it the DoubleTree, Matthew? Why did they call it that?
You don't have any idea?
No, I have no idea. Why? Tell me.
Because there was two trees.
Oh, he's a legend. Oh, he's a legend.
I also give you a cookie. That's the only thing I remember about the place. They give you a cookie.
Yeah, that's all I remember. I also remember being near this pool and it smelled like chlorine. Remember, man, we only got to be at the pool for like an hour. I
don't remember getting in that at all, to be honest with you.
Actually, I think we were only around the pool for an hour. I don't even think we were able, like, allowed to swim in it.
I don't remember, honestly. I wouldn't want to go in that water, though, because I remember it smelled strong, and I didn't want to get near the chemicals, so I'm probably, like, pass.
It smelled of chlorine, a lot of chlorine. But yeah, that was one of the hotels we stayed in. And then there was another one. Where in the world was it? It was kind of like down towards town, I think. Let's see. I can't find it. So I guess we'll have to leave that one alone. But
I like it. Someone returned the fire with another flat joke like I just made. FC said, "I hear they've been called the Lone Tree after an incident with the Rogue DeLorean." Honestly, man, that's good. Right there, I like that. The Lone Tree or the Double Tree. I think both of them provide probably equal services at this point.
I'd have to agree. Also, there's a salt and pepper shaker museum here.
Now, they were really stretching for something here. They were desperate for a business. Now, look at that. They messed up the whole country.
Man, what the hell? Connecticut's behind New York.
Man, I tell you, they had the whole. I say they had the whole geography of the country right, except when they got to New England, they just like effed it all up.
So why in the world would these salt and pepper shakers not be made? Also, what's the museum part about this? This isn't telling the history of the salt and pepper shakers. This is just salt and pepper shakers.
Yeah, also, why they had to put a little note next to it that said the complete map of the USA? I'm like, they knew it was that bad looking. They had to like put a note next to it. They're like, nobody's gonna know what the hell this is. Let's put a note.
Dude, New England looks like a freaking like tumor that's gone wild. Like it doesn't even look like it's even close to being the rest of the U.S. Let's see what else. Mount St. Helens. Now to everything made from the ashes of Mount St. Helens. You know, that's actually kind of cool, you know, because that's a rare thing. It's not like the whole area around Mount St. Helens is still covered in the ash of Mount St. Helens. Like, totally not. But, you know, what do I know? Beyond that, though, you know, I don't really know if that's even, like, technically an attraction. I was just thinking about that. Like, do you pay for admittance into there? Like, to look at salt and pepper shakers?
I thought you were just going there to buy.
I don't know. Like, honestly, I'm kind of a little confused. But let's see. Moonshine Mountain Coaster. Okay, so it's one of those like alpine mountain coaster things. Where's the moonshine coming? Do you have to get blitzed to ride this thing, or can you just ride it normally?
Well, if you just go up in the mountains, they have the Discovery Channel out there filming them actually making it. You just go out there with where the huge mega camera crews at to their secret distillery site and go take a look.
Bruh. And then the cops are out there looking for them at night, and they've got like a whole lighting rig around them as they're working on the still. The cop can literally see like the lighting rig through like 1,200 yards of forest, and he's like, damn, I guess they made it away. I ain't gonna find them tonight. It's getting too dark. You can literally see them lit up like damn Christmas out there.
Those shows kill me. It's like, they're like, yeah, they're Tickles out here at this still in the middle of Tennessee making that strawberry mash. And meanwhile, they got like a whole Discovery film team around them with generators, movie equipment, and everything else. Just like, and then they got the cops with a film crew with them too going about, I don't know where Tickles was at today. It's like, why don't you just film, like phone the other like film crew? It's like there's right down the road. You don't see all those trucks parked on the side of the road with all the film lights and cameras and stuff in it. They got like Discovery Channel plastered on the side of it. It's like that's probably where the moonshiners are at.
Also, man, you know, like the cops are always asking where this guy was. But my big question, though, as far as the show is concerned, why in the world were they not asking the question that always mattered to me that I never got an answer to? Why the hell did everyone call him Tickle? Is he like on a registry or something? Like, why is his nickname Tickle? Like, that's my question. Like, who in the hell gets that nickname and why? Like, how in the hell do you even go about getting a nickname like Tickle?
Well, I mean, some questions are better left unanswered sometimes.
Man, I'm telling you, honestly, I'm kind of scared to get an answer to that question. But I'll be honest with you folks, I don't know how the hell you get a nickname like Tickle. That's one of the ones that you just wouldn't expect. You know, like on every nickname you could get, Tickle? How the hell do you get that? I still want to know. Like,
how the hell do you get P. Diddy? I mean, you know.
Well, we all know how he got P. Diddy. That was his christening at the freak off. But how in the hell, like, how in the hell do you get Tickle? How the hell do you get Tickle? I don't know. But anyways, with that, a lot of people may not even know what we're talking about. It's like a reality TV show thing. I think it's called Moonshiners or something like that. But I just have many questions about how that show even works. But anyways, with that, let's see. So is it reality TV isn't? Yeah, it's not. It's not at all. Like anyone who watches it can see that, but it's like, how the hell did they come up with like these ridiculous storylines? The one show that is real though, to a degree, is Deadliest Catch. I appreciate Deadliest Catch because it's just like crab fishers crab fishing, So it's like, well, that's as much as you could make it out to be. They do
Also,
have
Pawn Stars is accurate too.
the what stars?
That came off kind of bad. What I'm talking about, like a pawn shop, right?
Yeah, pawn shop.
My pronunciation is not on point, but you know what I'm talking about. That show on True TV.
Dude, you said the first time, have you ever heard of that? Like you said it in such a way,
I know.
It didn't sound like pawn.
I can't. It's hard to like say. I don't know why, but it's hard to say the real deal with that. But y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Like that show.
Pawn Stars.
Yeah, it's the guy. It's got the guy that like comes up to the counter. And he's like, it's that Chumley guy and stuff in it and everything.
That show is actually technically fake.
Well, I mean, it's not really fair. I mean, the guy has a real pawn shop. It's got like a set though, like that they filmed the show out of, and then they got like the real one like down the street, I think.
Bro, we're gonna have to put that one in quotes, man. Have you ever watched that Pawn Stars? That's a pretty good
I
show.
saw somebody else do the same mistake though yesterday. I don't know why it is. I can't say the like name of that show without the accent or whatever. I can't really my brain won't allow me to pronounce it right. But I saw another guy yesterday mispronounce it wrong as well, and somebody else literally thought he said the exact same thing you thought it said as well. He's like, "What? Wait a minute, say it again." Like, what did you say? He's like, whatever.
Man, but Pawn Stars, I have heard of it. That's an interesting show. Another one. Someone said Micro Dirty Shops. Yeah, that's a real show, but that one isn't like one like oh damn, like Moonshiners where it's all fake. I was trying to think of another example rather than Moonshiners, but it's not like Moonshiners. It's like a real show that's just kind of like showing you how people's jobs work, what happens in their jobs. Those are good reality TV shows, but the ones that are lame to me are the ones where they make up like a storyline. Like technically Tiger King was real, apparently, but I just kind of found the whole thing to be a little bit overblown. Like it was a little too dramatic to me, like that damn Carol Baskins. And then they have a Baskins Creek Road right here. Like no joke, just saw it. That's coincidence, but like those kinds of shows, I'm like, and also someone said River Monsters real. Yeah, River Monsters was real, and it only lasted as long as it did because the guy actually ended up catching every single fish he planned to. So the show was over. So he ended it.
They didn't go for the swamp creature.
No, they didn't go for all the fake ones. They went for the real ones. They actually caught them all. And he was like, okay, well, guess the show's over. And so the show ended. And he didn't renew his contract, I believe, to make more seasons or episodes. So that was pretty, cool. But let's see. Someone said, American Pickers. I don't know a lot about American Pickers, honestly. I heard like some sort of a scandal or something like that with them, but I don't know much about them to talk about it. Because I didn't really watch a lot of them because honestly, I don't know who they appeal to. Like the information is so surface level that you can only repackage it in so many different ways that they present on most of those shows without it being old and boring. Like they make them as simple as they can to literally like a 3-year-old or even a newborn could follow along. So it gets pretty old and tiresome to watch after a while because you watch them do the same things over and over and over, like American Pickers or Storage Wars or, Ancient Aliens. They all have like the same formulaic principle.
Oh man. I like those shows that are on the History Channel, all like the Ancient Aliens and all that stuff like that. Every single show is the same. It's like the same headline. Like honestly, they've got the easiest writing job in the world. It's literally just a bunch of scripted questions. They're like, the alien spaceship landed in Ravenhurst Forest, and it landed so hard that it left a hole in the ground. Could it be the aliens are heavier than hell and put a hole in the ground because they're fat? Find out after this 10-minute commercial break.
Wait, and then they'll actually try and make it seem like there might be some purpose behind it, and they'll get like the craziest looking person from the local town, like they're sitting there, there's voices in the walls, and then they walk out there and they're like, it hit the ground. It's like, can we really believe this person? Like they seem like they might be a little unhinged. And I was like, I was like, is this really even like believable? And then they'll be like, did it really hit the ground or did it not? And every single question is, did it or did it not? And that's like that's the writing for every single episode. And I'm like, damn, I'm like, come on, like, get to a real answer, get to a real one. And then they always bring on the guy with the crazy hair, and he's always like, you see, aliens did it. And they ran out of so much content, Matthew, you're not going to believe it. They moved up into like the modern day. Like they're like literally like talking ancient aliens is talking about stuff that happened 20 years ago and whether aliens were involved or not. Like I think they even did an episode, like I don't want to say this with fact, but they've gotten modern enough. I think they actually did an episode on the Gulf War, and they were like, did America beat the Iraqi army, the third largest in the world, alone? Or did they get help from somewhere else? And it's like, are you shitting me? It's like, are we even we're doing this now? It's like, we're literally talking about stuff that happened in modern memory and asking whether aliens obliterated the Iraqis. So I don't think it takes aliens to obliterate the Iraqi army, just being entirely honest. And then they did it with World War II. Did the Allies get help to win World War II? It's like your crazy uncle who's like too obsessed with conspiracy theories to the point that everything is a conspiracy theory, including how meat gets to the grocery store, took over a writer's block for that show, and literally nothing happened in human history without aliens doing it. We're just the puppets for the aliens play is pretty much what that show is. And it's like, that is so stupid. Like that show absolutely grinds my gears that it even exists. And then they replaced like all of the good shows, like World War II in color, which is simple. Like, it's simple, simplified history of World War II, but it was so good. It was really good. And then they got rid of Modern Marvels. Like, they don't really hardly play Modern Marvels anymore. And Modern Marvels was so good.
Oh, they got it?
They
They've
do?
got it. You just don't see it. We don't have a TV subscription.
Oh, I mean, Modern Marvels is the GOAT. Modern Marvels is goated. How it's made is also really cool. But the other ones that get, like, into this, like, goofiness, like Moonshiners and, like, all that sort of stuff, I don't like those shows. I find them lame. Like, I don't even know how people really, like, enjoy them. Because they're, like, it's like cheap theater. Like, even if you look at it at what it really is, in its best light, it's cheap theater. And it's like, there's better theater to be had out there, really, you know, than that.
Oh, also, Brian's brain said Skinwalker Ranch. Honestly, I thought that meant something else, by the way. Like, when I initially heard that name, I was like, "Wow, what ranch?" Sorry, say again. But honestly, here's my thing with that. It's supposedly like a haunted area of land out in Utah, or whatever. I would go spend a night there if the people would let me. I would literally go spend a night there in the woods, or not, no woods, it's like the desert basically. I would go spend a night there, and I'm like, I bet I wouldn't come across nothing. I bet if I went there and spent the night there, I wouldn't come across nothing. Now, obviously, I would have to be allowed to be packing and stuff like that. Like, I wouldn't want to be out there with nothing. But at the same time, though, I really doubt that it's really much of anything. It's probably just like a bunch of hype.
Oh, also, I saw someone say, let's see, the Growing Buds 420 said something, and I'm gonna have to blow the lid on this. The whole premise of Ancient Aliens is that we are part aliens, and ancient aliens made us in their image, and that's what modern religion is based on. I'm not going to, I don't mean to scare anyone, but that is literally the entire, like, basic theory of Scientology. Like, no joke. Like, do you know about that, Matthew?
About what?
Like, the whole, like, basic, like, theory of Scientology?
Oh yeah, I know about it.
Like, how, like, people, like, were, like, aliens threw us down to a volcano and then it blew up and then we, like, just started to exist. Like, that's literally, like, the whole, like, Scientology thing that is. Like, if that's the premise of Ancient Aliens, like, that is wild, because it's literally just, like, Scientology, like, theory, I think, from what I would know. It's very similar to it, at least. But that kind of stuff, like, I don't buy it. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to LC39A once again. He throws in the second support of the night, another massive $100 donation of 109 Canadian. And thank you very much, good sir, for that massive second support of the night. And once again, we do appreciate that. He said, the Eisenhower Doctrine.
Containment. Actually, it's kind of like a Truman Eisenhower thing, if that's what you're talking about. But containment, I believe in containment. Like, the containment policy is really tough to pull off in a nuclearized age where everyone is a nuclear power that we're dealing with, but we can still do it, and we can do it with the island containment chain around China. So I definitely agree with you on that. LC-39A. I think that a containment policy against the Chinese and further expansion of the Chinese is crucial in the modern foreign policy era. I would entirely agree with that. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And a huge thanks to you once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it rolling. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the next one. I also see some people going, "What, really? Like that's like Scientology's thing?" Yeah, it's like this whole thing. Like this guy called L. Ron Hubbard, he wrote like these books, and they were like science fiction books, but then he tried to turn it. Well, he did turn it into a religion. And so the whole theory is that aliens came to Earth and they wanted to create people or something like that. And so they threw what were going to become people into a volcano. The volcano blew up, and as a result of the explosion and something that happened, humans were created. That's like the whole like basic, like that's like the creationist story for Scientology. And so if you ever go and look at like a Scientologist building or like their offices or anything like that in one of their buildings, you'll see that volcano on a lot of the symbols. And they won't tell you what it is up front. Like if you ask, "Hey, what is it?" They won't tell you. You've got to get like really deep into the whole like what is it called, Matthew? The little things where they come in and they check your Thetan level or something.
Yeah, I'm just like baseline familiar with it, but I think they call those audits, like where
Yeah,
they
the
like
audits.
come in and question you and things like that, and try to like get to the basically what the audits are. It's basically like a basic personality test, and they're trying to basically find your strengths and weaknesses, so that way they can pretend like they have some unique insight to you or something.
Yeah, so they do these audits, and once you start spending a lot of money, because audits cost money, I think it's like several $100 or $1,000 a piece. Once you do enough of the audits, then they finally introduce you into the whole creationist story of Scientology and really like the actual belief system. And by that point, you're so far in, you can't really leave because you've given them all of your personal information and stuff. So that's generally how it works. Like that's how their system works. So with that, I hope that addresses that well, or at least speaks about it to some degree. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to WS, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, WS, for that $20 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And they said, "I'm still catching up 40 minutes back regarding Russian nuke subs. And even though they might be fine, what about the port and being able to deploy and resupply subs? And would they be grounded due to underwater landslides? And also to the coffee and the pizza fund?"
And hey, thank you for the coffee, the pizza fund, WS. And as far as the subs go at Vilkovo, I don't think there's any underground pens, so they really couldn't be damaged by landslides. And all of the major elevation features are a good ways away from the actual sub basings, which are right here. And they're open air basings. They're not sub pens in a mountain or anything like that. So generally, from what I would know, they wouldn't really be damaged that much, and if they're grounded or anything along those lines, they still would be able to generally operate them, and if they needed to, they could just move them to Vladivostok to continue operations. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least from what I would know, and a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are also, I saw someone say, "Are y'all former Scientologists?" No. I've just been like looking into stuff like that lately, like how different groups work. So let's see. What are some groups? They're one of them. How the Church of the Latter-day Saints, aka the Mormons, how they work, what their general belief systems are. Theirs are interesting. Like really interesting. And I don't mean that in like a good or a bad way. It's just interesting, to put it that way. But let's see what else. Oh yeah, I've been looking a little bit into like the extreme groups, like the ones that would be considered extremist ideologies, the ones that are actually considered pretty much terror groups by the U.S. government. Because I'm like, how whack are they? And funnily enough, a lot of people on YouTube actually do interviews with these people and documentaries and stuff around them, and they are whack. Like they're just absolutely bizarre. But those have been some groups that I've been looking at, like studying. And like one thing that's interesting though is that all of them generally revolve around the primary emotion driving their members being fear of something. Like, it has to be some kind of fear. None of them are really driven by any sort of a greater purpose of prosperity or a greater vision. It's more so just driven by fear or hatred that is enforced by fear. And it's really interesting with that, because once you boil it down to the basic emotions involved, it's like, they all kind of operate on a very similar framework. It's just that the constructs that they make to instill this hatred through fear, or just a straight up fear, it takes different forms, but they produce the same result, and that's how they generally get some sort of a assured loyalty, or something like that. Or they end up preying on the vulnerable, like people who are mentally vulnerable, who are looking for some sort of purpose or something like that. Then they find those people. But very, very interesting stuff. Not interesting in the way that you would want to join it. I could, I wouldn't do that. But it's interesting in the point of learning a little bit more about how people operate, on a sociological level within groups like that, and very bizarre stuff. Like, if you ever start looking into it and you go down that rabbit hole, people can be wild. Like, people can be really extreme. Like, really any group can be described like that. Not even like religious groups. Really, a lot of them operate like that. Like, communism or fascism operates on very similar principles, where they enforce hatred through fear, or fear through hatred, or they really do a mix of the two. Because if you look at it, communist or fascist ideology, they pretty much follow the same core tenets to try and build up supporters, is that they want to build up this inevitable fear, or this hatred of something that you fear, and then they pretty much use that to try and ensure that they have a very loyal supporter base. It's very interesting. A lot of people do that in politics these days as well. Really trying to generate some sort of hatred and then fear, or fear of a hatred, or something like that. It's a very interesting sort of a thing. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Oh Lord, I tell you what. I just saw a report right here that apparently some people on board a flight from Salt Lake City just got injured with some severe turbulence on Wednesday. It sounds like the flight was heading out to Amsterdam, the Netherlands, from Salt Lake City. Horrible, right there. Honestly, horrible. I hate to hear that. Honestly, I hate flying these days, but you got to do it. It's too far. You got to fly. Also, by the way, just to get everybody up to date with us, the U.S. president is publicly bashing and slamming Medvedev right now on True Social.
Oh, really?
He said, let's keep it that way, meaning that Russia and the USA do almost no business together. He said, also tell Medvedev, that failed Russian former president who thinks he's still president, to watch his words. He's entering some dangerous territory. You better watch it.
Dang. We went from we're going to have peace in a day to threatening Medvedev. Medvedev is about to get throttled by some guy in the CIA in like 2 weeks tops. Like you can't see. But I'm whipping out the popcorn on this one, folks. This is getting interesting. But anyways, with that, folks, we are on to that. Also, by the way, Matthew's scared of flying, so of course, y'all know I've got to throw in the plug. Why fly? Take the train. Hey! It takes like 5 days to get out there by train, so kind of like unrealistic.
I'm not scared of flying. It's just I don't want to fly and have a pilot that doesn't know what they're doing, because it seems like there's a lot of mishaps happening these days, or maybe like air traffic control being underfunded and they're not on the game, or something like that. I'm worried about incompetence. I'm not really worried about flying, because the planes can usually handle whatever's thrown at them as long as you have your seatbelt on. But I'm just worried about people that are somewhat incompetent.
Man. That is real. That's real. Honestly, folks, I think the way I'm going to travel cross country in the future, if we ever get successful enough to have the expendable income for this, I'm just going to get a private rail car and charter a railroad company to just transport it around everywhere. It might take a long time, but there's not really a lot of ways that can go wrong. Or if it goes wrong, it's not like you're going to die instantly. That's the way I'd also look at it. So, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to For the Mons, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much for that support. They said, I like to know what's happening in the world, and I'll say, you two something. I'm not sure what that means right there. I'm going to shy away from it until I know what that means. They said, if you know, you know. Sadly, I don't know, so I'm going to be scared of it. But they said, have turned out to be the real deal, you two. And the information you give is almost invaluable. Thank you both, and much respect.
Almost invaluable? You didn't say it was invaluable? Ban this person. I'm just kidding, by the way, for the Mons. But I got to thank you so much for enjoying our show and enjoying the kind of info that we put out. we put in a lot of work, and like I say this a lot whenever people give us a compliment, but we put in a lot of work because y'all's accreditation means a lot to us, and we love to know that we have y'all's respect and generally endless devotion to watching the show every day. We put that in high regard, and we always work to make sure that our news is of top-notch quality. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. Thank you for the very kind words, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on. Also, let's see. I see some people talking about the whole going by rail. You know, I would like to see in the future that America is travelable by rail. You know something, folks? I was actually thinking of putting out like sort of a I don't want to, like, manifesto has a bad implication to it these days, especially in America, but I was wanting to put out, like, a book or something, like, write a book on what I think the future of the country should look like in 30 years. And I wasn't knowing if a lot of people would want to buy that, and I don't really know if I even have the time to write up a multi-hundred-page book to explain what I think the country should look like in 30 years or so. But I think it would be kind of cool, because we talk about it here and there here on the channel, but if y'all said, Enforcer, here you go, you have a brush, you can create a perfect America. Like I could end up like writing hundreds of pages on what I think an ideal country would look like in 30 years. Although that would never be attainable, and you know, it would be impossible even if it was 300 years from now. It still would be an interesting thing to sort of write about and say, what would be the best thing for all the citizens in this country? What would it look like? Because one thing that I think would be great is to have a nationalized transportation, well, not a nationalized transportation, but a national transportation system running in conjunction of the localities, the municipalities, the states, and the federal government, but it's all interconnected and uses the national the Department of Transportation on the federal level to be able to coordinate it all on a general framework, but it would be different from state to state, city to city, and across country. But I think that would be really cool to actually see a fully interconnected public transportation system nationwide to where you literally could get from point A to point B without having to get in a car at all. Or even a bus.
Yeah.
Like, I think that'd be incredibly cool.
I just want the pilots to get on the plane and not be loaded, like, drunk when they're getting on the plane. I heard yesterday, apparently a pilot got on a plane. Apparently he had like some like liquor with him or something. And apparently he was over the limit because they put him on the breathalyzer and he was blowing on it. And it came back over the limit. And they had to like take him off the plane and stuff like that. And I was like, how often does this happen? I'm like, that's the first time I've ever heard of something like that happening. But of course, I'm not a pilot, so I don't really know the ins and outs of how it works. But I'm like, shoo, like, what are the odds you jump on a plane and they don't catch it or something, and they've been drinking or something, and you don't even know?
Yeah, I mean, like a snootful on a plane seems like a recipe for disaster, really. Because you're only going to have one operational pilot in the cockpit. It's going to be the co-pilot or pilot. It's like that's betting against the odds at that point, at least in my opinion. But the thing is, though, is with automation and AI, there can be nothing that goes wrong. We'll just put AI in charge of the planes, and then they'll see a cloud and think it's a plane coming at them, and then they'll nosedive into the ground and crash. It's a fail-safe system. But anyways, I would let's see. I see some people saying we have that. It's called the interstates. But I don't I just got to be honest, folks. I don't really like cars too much. People suck at driving. Like, the more I have to drive, the more I realize I don't like the roads because most people don't know how to drive. And so that's why I don't like driving. Like, and I don't really like the cars. And why like people say it's the freedom of travel, but the thing is that before cars were a thing, Americans' freedom of travel was through the railroads. Like, how do you think people got out to the West Coast? They didn't get there in a car. They got out there by train. How did they settle the West in general? They did it by rail, for the most part, through most of the West's history, through most of American history. The country was made on the railroads. We are the railroad country, even still to this day. We have more miles of rail in the United States than most of the next top 10 combined. Like, it's a huge thing that this country was a pioneer of, and it's a massively beneficial thing. And I think that people should have the option to be able to travel on the interstates and travel by car if they want to everywhere. But I also think that we should have some sort of a transportation system set up to where if you didn't want to have to drive a car literally everywhere and live in a car-centric country, you would have the ability to go all the way from 9th Street on the corner of Fifth Avenue in New York City all the way to the middle of bum-aff nowhere in South Dakota entirely by public transport. I think that would just be a really cool thing to see put into practice and a national prestige point, because what other country out there in the world has that bragging point? The People's Republic of China. They don't really have a lot of car ownership like we do, and that's why they have that. But wouldn't it be great if the United States could say, we are the forefront leader of global transportation because we have such a strong belief in the freedom of travel. Even if you don't have a car, you can still get anywhere and everywhere you want in this country, and it costs almost nothing. That would be a really cool thing to be able to brag about.
Yeah, it would be. Also, real quick, pull up that tweet that the president put out, by the way, because I was reading it a second time, and there's actually a lot more to that tweet than I even read. I just read a snippet of it. So pull that up real quick on Twitter. Here's what the president said, by the way. It's right here on the screen. The U.S. president said, and this was aimed at Russia, he said, "I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care. And we've done very little business with India, and their tariffs are too high and among the highest in the world. And likewise, Russia and the USA do almost no business together. And let's keep it that way and tell Medvedev, the failed former president of Russia, who thinks he's still the president, to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory." Honestly, like the whole thing, like in totality, is honestly quite crazy. Calling Russia and India dead economies, that's a little bit not true about India, by the way. India's not a dead economy. I'm not sure why he's saying that. Yeah, Russia's a dead economy. Like that's going down the tubes fast, but not India though. So it sounds like he's pissed off at this point. Definitely pissed with Russia, but he's also throwing India in the mix as well for some reason.
I think, Matthew, this is what it's called in diplomatic terms, a crash out.
Yeah, he's crashing out. Apparently, he's gotten irritated personally with the two countries for him to say that. Because it's not even true.
Why the hell? Like, why does everything end up becoming personal though? Like this is business. Why? Like, I just got to ask that. Why the hell does he make everything personal? Like it's against him personally? Like this is the business of foreign policy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly though, with Medvedev though, I mean, Medvedev did make it personal. Medvedev basically threatened him directly from the way I interpreted it. He was threatening the president directly and also threatening the United States as a whole. So Medvedev did make it personal. But with India, it's like, you know, I get the frustration with India because I'm sure they're not probably cooperating. But at the same time, though, should we really be trying to make enemies out of them? It's like, should we, try to negotiate? How come we're willing to negotiate with everybody except for India?
I don't know. But also, like, one thing though that I gotta say, let's see, I see some people saying, let's see, I said, why does he gotta crash out? And then what do you, like, I was gonna respond to something you said and I forgot what I was going to say. But I don't know, like, but the thing, oh yeah, here's what I was gonna say. Medvedev threatened him, sure, but Medvedev is like anyone else. Like, like the reality is that that guy who put out the tweet is the president of the United States. And he has the power at his fingertips to pretty much, kill everyone in Russia if he wanted to. So it's like, why in the world would we bring ourselves down to the level of directly responding to a threat like that? It's because, like in reality, folks, the president is the president. It's like, it's not like he's just some random guy on the street. So when you get cussed out, you cuss out someone back. I mean, you generally got the ability with someone like that who runs their mouth to be able to airstrike them, even if they are a Russian in Russia, and wipe them out, within hours. Like doing that on Medvedev would be a pretty easy sort of a thing to pull off for America, at least. We could probably do that within 6 hours. So it's like, why in the world would we really care a little bit about a threat like that to get personally offended? But it's just like, I mean, hell, Khamenei has made endless threats like that. We never saw it get that personal, so it's like, why in the world are we that offended about him,
I also notice he's Medvedev made the first punch, so naturally he's responding to Medvedev's first strike with that strike he made there in the Truth Social post. But notice he didn't mention Putin at all. It's like Putin's in charge of the country. It's how come you're not directing some of these comments at Putin? He's leaving his name out like he's like not even there.
Honestly, man, Twitter has made foreign policy a cesspit these days with the kind of stuff that gets passed. Like, it's like, who in the world, like, could y'all have ever imagined anyone is even as recently as Bush and Clinton getting away with having spats like this with foreign leaders or like head advisors of foreign countries? Like, it wouldn't have happened. Twitter is making it to where foreign leaders and diplomats and ours feel more than free at going at each other in public like that, which is, in my opinion, it's completely uncouth on a foreign policy level. One, that Medvedev would say that, but two, that we would respond to it in that sort of a way, because it's like, we're the United States of America. We really don't have to answer to threats like that because that guy could disappear by tomorrow, in a U.S. airstrike, and there's not really a lot he could do about that or anyone could do about that.
Yeah, I don't get it personally, and I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand saying saying things like, for example, India is a dead economy. It's like, if he's saying that just to jab India, to like let them know that he doesn't think very highly of them, that's one thing. But the problem is, though, you can't ever distinguish, is he misinformed or is he doing that to jab the Indian administration? You can't really tell what his knowledge is on this. And I really couldn't even guess. Maybe he thinks that India's a dead economy. I mean, in my opinion, it's pretty common knowledge that India is not a dead economy. You can do a simple Google search and find out that's not the case. So I'm not sure why he'd even say that. It sounds uninformed on his face.
Yeah, I mean, if their GDP is growing 8.2% annually at this point, that's far away from being dead. That's actually rapidly growing. So it's like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to say something like. Also, it's destroying the foreign policy objectives that we've been working towards for 15 years under his last administration from 2016 to 2020, under Biden's and Obama's, which this has generally been a big prerogative of, is to try and befriend the Indians because we understand that they're the weak link of the BRICS alliance. And now we're just going to go and squander it. Like, also, that doesn't really make the Indians want to say, okay, we're going to cut off our imports of Russian oil and gas. They're probably going to go, oh, screw you then, dude. We'll just keep buying it. Kiss our ass. And then they can end up doing that. Then we've ended up doing nothing but actually solidifying the BRICS alliance because now they're united against the United States that's running their mouth at all of them.
Did the Indians give the U.S. credit for negotiating a ceasefire, or was that Pakistan?
I think
it might have been India that gave credit. I think India was the country that gave him the credit. I don't think Pakistan. Let me check that real quick on Twitter. That might give us some insight to why he's attacking India like that. Let's see here. Because one of those countries gave him credit publicly for negotiating the ceasefire here. Like I think it was today actually. So let me scroll down here and see if I can try to find that information. Let's see here. So I'm trying to see, is it India or is it Pakistan that did that? I'm trying to scroll down to find it right now. I've tweeted a hell of a lot today for there not to be a whole lot of stuff on here. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find it real quick, and I'll jump back in when I see it.
And let's see. I see someone saying, let's see. Someone say kind of tripping lately. Well, I mean, no, it's like this is just normal analysis, man. I mean, sorry if you lean politically one way or the other, because generally in the last administration, if we ever criticized Biden, Democrats would go crazy and act like our statements were completely uncouth. And then with Trump, if you're a Republican, our statements are completely uncouth to each group. Like, if you don't like him, sorry. I mean, this is just the truth of it. That doesn't really make a lot of sense on the face of it, considering everything we have going on, foreign policy-wise and strategically with the Indians. So, it doesn't really make too much sense to jab them like that because it's starting to damage our relations with them publicly and quite easily. So,
okay, so here, this might explain why India is getting bashed out of the blue. India denied that the U.S. had a strong role in halting the conflict. India is apparently denying that and saying that, no, it's not because of the U.S. president. It's because we just ended it on our own accord. That could explain, the sudden jabs out of the blue.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. It's
and also someone saying in the chat, by the way, some Vikas is saying the Indian Prime Minister refused U.S. involvement yesterday in Parliament. I think that might be part of it, because that's sort of like, if I'm getting this story accurate, it sounds like India is trying to disavow U.S. involvement in brokering the ceasefire, and that's like a direct hit to the ego, like on that one. So that might explain it.
Yeah, that's probably is actually just about as simple as it gets. Probably like with the whole Thailand Cambodia thing. Well, it is what it is, folks. I guess we just kind of got to work with that. So yeah, I can't really make much more comments on that. So anyways,
it sounds like Pakistan gave him credit for stopping it, though. Oh, let's see. Yeah, people were saying, yeah, y'all are correct, by the way. Pakistan, I think, offered him the Nobel Peace Prize or nominated him or something for it. So oddly enough, Pakistan's not the country we're aligned with closer. I would say we're aligned closer with India. Pakistan's aligned closer with China, but Pakistan was the country that kind of sucked up to the U.S. president, and also at some point suggested that he should get a Nobel Peace Prize for it, which is kind of weird. And India is the country that's saying, hell no, he didn't do it. We did it on our own. He can get out of it. So hell, I mean, it's kind of upside down.
Dude, Pakistan knew how to play the game, honestly.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing. Oh man. So yeah, that's why he's now going at the Indians. So I guess there goes like 15 years of foreign policy development with the Indians overnight. So I guess the Chinese will be able to create the One Belt, One Road system eventually, and we won't have any counter to it in the Indian Ocean. So well, there goes the whole island containment chain. Might as well not even have that at this point either, because if you don't have the Indian Ocean, there's no point in the containment policy. So oh well. So yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to figure that out. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LC39A once again. He throws in the third support of the night. The third massive support, by the way. And a huge thank you, sir. I feel like I'm a broken record at this point. But a huge thank you for that 110 Canadian, which is the largest super chat of the night. We do appreciate that. He said, if God wanted men to fly, we would be able to flap our arms a lot faster. And if my mother was a bike, she'd have a wheels.
This tastes kind of like a carbonara. And if my mother had the wheels, she would have been a bike. But anyways, yeah. I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel keep on running, LC39. I'd agree. I've tried to flap my arms quickly. I just couldn't fly, though. And it was a shame. It made me sad. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So a massive thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. And I like the joke. That was a pretty good one. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also I see some people saying some things one way or the other. The foreign policy is completely after it's this and that. The India thing is being completely misgauged, and we're kind of blowing a primetime opportunity that we've been working on for at least a decade and a half. That is a big mistake, and it's not a good one, like at all. So, people are about to be going, oh, what do you mean he's making a mistake? He can't. They do. Like presidents do. The last one did. This one does. This is a bad mistake, though, because the Chinese are trying to build an economic sphere of influence based around the Indian Ocean. So if the U.S. is an ally of India and we have military bases in India, the U.S. is literally sitting militarily in the middle of their economic sphere. Without India, we can't do that. So they can actually just close off the Indian Ocean and create a self-contained trading sphere that we can't get into and we can't interdict or cause any issues or damage to. So it's a bit of a big issue. Yeah, like whether you want to believe it or not a smart idea. And also, I think the whole thing that I was saying earlier now is really starting to become clear. I think he's viewing BRICS as like this unified thing like NATO, which it isn't. And at that point, his foreign policy is being educated by the people of Twitter, which are not like there are great people on Twitter, but the people who are putting out crap like that are not the smartest people. And apparently that's where he's getting his foreign policy notes from, is from Twitter. So not really a smart idea. Should largely be listening to experts on it instead, like the folks who've actually been working on the whole let's build up the Indians to make them break away from BRICS and become a military ally of the U.S., because that was a pretty smart idea. So also Paul Ham said Australia doesn't count. Not really, because the Indians are literally strategically placed on the trade route of the Indian Ocean. Let me show this. Global shipping density map. Let me show you this, because this is a little important to note. So this is the shipping density map. And notice if China builds a significant economic sphere of influence around the Indian Ocean, the very southern tip of India is right where that major shipping lane passes. Australia isn't near that. Australia doesn't really get a lot of shipping traffic in general compared to elsewhere. So if we're military allies with India, we're literally in striking distance of their major shipping route. And really the literal artery of their entire sphere of influence at that point. That's why India is a lot more important than Australia, at least in that sense. So in a strategic sense, Australia doesn't count in that matter. They count more so in an Indo-Pacific sort of a situation, but not in, well, more so in a Pacific role, but not really in an Indian Ocean sort of a role. So I hope that does address that well. That's generally why we were trying to get India as an ally, was to deal with that. And it kind of appears that we won't be able to do that now, maybe, because if they get, depending on India's response, if they're pissed off publicly about that tomorrow or tonight, it's over. Like, we will not be able to try and even achieve that anymore. So with that, I hope that addresses that somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next one. This one goes to Luke UK, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Luke, as well. He said, hello, everyone, and hello, LSA. And my question is, when Russia and Belarus do their military drills in September, could that be a pretense for Russia to try and take Kyiv? And thank you, enforcers.
It could be. Military exercises are always a potential military offensive whenever anyone does them. So yes, that could actually end up being a significant threat. So I thank you for the support. I hope that has addressed that somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wantan Quadruple 8, who puts in a 10, who said, Coke is about to make a killing buying sugar from Cuba, pushing it through Mexico, and selling the delicious nectar, too, is for $6 a bottle, living up to their name, but the legal version.
And I thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. And possibly, it might happen, actually. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wantan once again, who puts in another 10. And they said, subholes are probably fine, but would the internals be able to take getting shook like a paint can via King Neptune's nature art project? I always pictured them floating smooth like armored whales.
They actually can take some decent vibrations, like getting beached or slammed into something. They can, because if they ever get depth charged, that would be something similar, at least with the pressures that would be under the, well, in the water at that point around the sub. So they can handle it. They are designed to handle pretty extreme rigors. And so big thanks to you for the support, Wantan Quadruple 8. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to White Quill, who puts in a 10. And they said, I think the Kremlin just doesn't care about sanctions. I don't think it's about China. I think Putin just doesn't care about the public.
I would have to generally agree. He's generally not cared, and I think that's a big part of this, is that he also just still doesn't care. The Chinese might be trying to bankroll him to a sense, which helps, but he generally wouldn't care anyways. And so a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Shauna, who puts in a 10. And Shauna said, thanks for the laughs.
Hey, and thank you so much for appreciating the laughs that we give to all of you. I hope the jokes are decent. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wantan Quadruple 8 once again. And he said, let's see. Do you see that? What does this one mean here at the beginning? I'm scared of it. What does this say?
I don't know.
I don't know what it says, Wantan, but I'm gonna still read the rest of it though, because I would read it, but I'm unsure if YouTube would like it or not. But they said Putin G Kim Jong. If you can't play along, take one from the chat, haha. But if you do, in RFK's voice, in LSA.
And I thank you for support one time, Quadruple 8, but I think we'll just have to take one from the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one from the chat goes to TS, who said, how will India handle their overpopulation problem? And in the past, countries expanded, so where's India going to expand to?
I don't think they'll be expanding per se. And they'll just, let me go pull up a India population density map. Here we are. You can't really read the figures there, can you? No, sir. Let's go get another one. Here we are, the India population density map. You just put them all down here, where there's not a lot of people. That's kind of the basic answer. You just put them all down there somewhere. And you just start importing more food as the farm fields disappear. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And I thank you greatly for the support. Also, look, here's another. Here's another. Oh, it's not going to give us any numbers or anything. Oh, geez, these charts are near damn unreadable. Here we go. So, Indian states compared to population density of each state. So, over 2,000 people live per square kilometer in places like Delhi or, New Delhi, and in places like here, 1,000, 2,000 people per square kilometer. That's so many people. That is a lot of people. Let's go out there. What does this look like in practice? Damn. Doesn't even really look that bad, actually. It's kind of more like here on any major highway. Like, people just live skirted along the edge of the highways everywhere. And that's kind of what it's like out here in this part of India, because this is technically the most dense by square kilometer. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to two hot dog guys, one cup of snow, who puts in a 10. And they said, Slov Ukraine, LTLSA, and thanks to the both of the enforcers for the nightly news. And I may not always be active, but I'm always here. And now let's get a space marmot to add to the mix with British and pimp marmot.
And I thank you for the support, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And a big thanks to you, two hot dog guys, one cup of snow, for being here and watching nightly. And thank you for being active tonight and supporting the channel as well, because it's a wonderful thing to know that you're here. And also, I would give a space moment, but that might take too much time to create tonight. We're starting to get to where we're running a little short on time. But we could do a normal marmot. We could do a normal one. So let me go grab it really quickly. And there we go. Jacob Legacy. He made it. Oh, hello there. Hey!
Oh, hello there, Governor. Hello there. Sadly, I have a splitting headache. I'm not sure if I can come up with lines for Marmot tonight, but there he is. Let him go.
Aw, man, he's quitting being the marmot.
Oh dear. He's not quitting. He's just doing a slight reorganization of the schedule, Governor, that's all. Just a slight rescheduling. Unlike the Hot Dog Man's channel, who's taken a permanent restructuring. It's called failure.
He hit me in the feels. Aw, man. Boo-hoo. Oh, man, I'm going to be on this show? Oh man, let me stop talking like a pothead. Yeah, you know, the Ukrainian resistance is really strong, and I think it's doing incredibly good. And then he got like 2,000 views. Rip to the hot dog man. But beyond that,
Don't give us that phony baloney talk. Say it how it is. Say it with the addict sound. Go ahead.
You know what was so crazy about that, man, is that by doing that show and talking that way, he actually proved that he doesn't talk like a bum. Like, as a thing, he just chooses to do that. And then, like, the ultimate question is why? Like, why would you want to sound like a bum? Like, that's something that's been in my mind for a while, folks. And I don't even think the greatest philosophers of history could find an answer to that one. But beyond that, I will have to say a big thanks to you for the support and helping us to get the Marmot on screen tonight. We always love to have Alan the Marmot with us, and it's a wonderful thing to know that he was here tonight. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Wan 10 quadruple 8 once again, who throws in a 10. And he said, they say, oh, wait a minute. I can't read this one. This one right here is a doozy right here.
Legalized comedy. Legalized comedy.
I tell you what, legalized comedy. Elon laugh. Thanks.
And I thank you for support, Wonton Quadruple 8. But sadly, we couldn't read that one off. But I do thank you massively for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Plazoth, who puts in a 6. And thank you very much, Plazoth, for that support once again. And we appreciate that very, very much. We also have a 5 from Joshua A., who said, USA, LSA.
Hey, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, USA and LSA. And a big thanks to both of y'all, Plazoth and Joshua A., for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from I Am a Hot Man, who said LSA.
Well, I personally can't weigh in on that, but I do thank you for the support, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Cachulian343, who puts in a 5. He said, I'm so tired of this policy of punishing everyone equally and never using the carrot. Big stick politics doesn't mean you have to bash everyone.
Well, I'd agree with you. But, you know, it's a guy in charge, you know. We just gotta kind of tough it out and hope that things don't go too badly. So a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. When will we vote in someone who actually has some sense? You know, like when? Because the current guy, the foreign policy is kind of busted. The last guy, foreign policy, kind of busted. When are we going to get someone who actually does some decent foreign policy around here? When are we going to get a decent meal around here, folks? I don't know when, but eventually we will. I just don't know when that will be. So hopefully we will. So with that, I hope that does address that well. Hope that addresses that somewhat well. And folks, Jesus, you know, it's It's getting hot in here. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Oh man, I'm born in the greatest country on the earth. Oh man, we get some of the dumbest leaders around here. Oh man, real dumb, real dumb. Oh man, the guy sit there and he called it 2 Corinthians. Oh man, I'm telling you. How the hell do you call it 2 Corinthians? Oh man. And then the last guy, he was talking about stacking spaghetti in spaghetti jars in the grocery store. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I'm telling you, they're old, real old. Oh man, when they fought, dust comes out. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Oh man, the United States of America. Oh man, people are beating each other to death on the streets. Oh man, they have a protest. They call it mostly peaceful. Oh man, there's nothing mostly peaceful about that. They're beating each other to death. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Oh man. Oh. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Catulian 343 yet again, who puts in a 5. They said, why aren't UN peacekeepers monitoring the Gaza food situation? I thought the whole point of a mercenary peacekeeping force was they protect the people.
Well, generally it's because a UN peacekeeping mission has not been declared in Gaza, which will require a vote of the UN Security Council, and most likely a unanimous decision by the Security Council. So that's generally the reason why. So with that, I hope that is addressed the best I can. A big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I see a lot of people got a lot of laughs out of the whole Rodney Dangerfield thing. I'm so sorry, folks. I hold back on that one a lot because I know that one's a really divisive one. People love it or hate it. I had to do it because it like I couldn't help it. But anyways, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to $2 Garage. He puts in a 5. And they said the U.S. president's ego is huge. And honestly, that's not even political. That's just an objective thing. I mean, even if you support him or don't support him, I mean, his ego is huge just from a personal perspective. But, you know, people are people. But India is also being stubborn. That's quite normal as well.
Yeah, that's true. As far as both of those, India is always stubborn to the point of stupidity. But the president also does have one hell of an ego. I haven't seen... Well, actually, we have seen one like it, but we tend to try and put that whole experience behind us in the past because we lived it our whole lives growing up for, at least for me, 23 years. Well, 22 just about. I was 23 in Enforcer HQ 2.0, which technically means that I dealt with that for like 22 and a half years. So I've only seen one other person like this in my life, and I got to be honest with y'all, decisions were not rashly made. So I'll just put it that way. So I would have to, well, they were not rationally made. Rashly made, fairly common thing. Not rationally made, totally different. But anyways, I hope that does address that well, because I would say you got the situation pretty down pat. And so with that, I hope that does address that best I can, at least in my opinion. And someone said, you're perfect. No, but look, come on, let's think with some sense here, okay? When you negotiate a ceasefire that is so weak it collapses in 3 hours and then you call yourself the peace president, I mean, that's pretty ego-driven, okay? Like just looking at that at face value, who the hell does that? Like, if I negotiated peace between Thailand and Cambodia, I would just wait for other people to say it was a good move. Like, the only reason we say stuff on this channel like we called it or we got it right is because a lot of people are not going to remember it because it was like 2 days ago or weeks ago or months ago. So when we get something right, we got to let people know because, you know, a lot of our analysis relies on our credibility. As far as the president, however, I mean, you got like half of the country behind you. Just wait for them to say something about it. You don't have to call yourself the greatest peace negotiator on earth. I mean, that's a really ego-driven kind of a thing. Like, that's an insecurity sort of a deal right there. Like, to be entirely honest, where you've got to praise yourself before anyone else can. I mean, he literally beats himself to the punch. Like, that's a, like, whether you like him or not, like, saying that he doesn't have an ego is pretty much living in denial. That's like saying the last guy wasn't clearly senile, which he was. I mean, you know, that's living in denial at this point. So, with that, I hope that does address that well. And the question we should all be asking, folks, is living in denial, which one, the upper or the lower Nile? But anyways, with that, it's time for us to move on into the live chat questions. And we are going to be getting a couple, due to Matthew having a headache and due to us being almost overtime. We will be getting 3 live chat questions and the Morse code decoders of the stream. But also I just saw someone say support the president period. Well, I mean, he's the president. I mean, it's not like you can sit there and say, oh, he's not my president. Like, he's been elected. He's the president for the next 4 years. So it'd be a little bit crazy to act like that's not the case. But at the same time, you know, like acting like I just gotta be honest, folks. Like, this is the thing I don't like about politics these days, is that it's so theatrical and goofy. Like, the last president clearly didn't even have his brain with him. He was senile, and this one's ego-driven. It's like, just admitting those things isn't a political jab or an insult to either of them. It's the truth. I mean, like, that's what it really was. That's what it really is. And trying to deny that reality is just trying to live in fantasy. I mean, like, if you psychologically profile that, the last guy didn't know where the hell he was or what he was doing most of the time. You can clearly tell. And the current guy, he's so ego-driven, he's got to sit there and praise himself in every tweet he makes. Like, you know, it's clear and obvious. Like, not saying I like or dislike either of them. I'm sure you could actually probably get along with them pretty well if you meet them in person. I mean, they got to be personable and charismatic enough to win the election, but still, as far as their personality flaws, I mean, or, you know, really their mental flaws, they're pretty clear to see. So with that, I hope that addresses that well. All the political people are going to come and try and beat us up over saying something that's generally true, but that is what it is. Anyways, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our Morse code decoders of the night, we have Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabo Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, and Copioterix, who's a newcomer to the Morse code decoders. And the Morse code says China is making it incredibly clear that they are the new leader of the Axis and LLT-LSA.
And ding, and that's the sound of money, and I got to thank y'all greatly for getting that Morse code message correct in the least spring armor Civil Corps once again. Y'all get that correct every single day of the year, and I congratulate y'all for that, because y'all have done an amazing job. And so, a big shout out to y'all once again, and with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to William, who said, do you think Israel might try and take over the Druze territory, like the Golan Heights?
I think it's possible in the future, especially if the Syrian interim government continues their atrocities against the Druze people. That probably will be their justification. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who said, has there been any evidence of further damage to the Kerch Bridge since the last time we heard?
We have not been able to hear of any further damage, so it appears that attack was a failure at this point. And so with that, I hope that is addressed the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. So who was the lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Joshua, who said, do you think the West will accept a Russian cessation of hostility and return to 2014 borders for ending the war and lifting the sanctions like Russia's about to collapse?
I don't think they will. I think Russia would want to collapse before they agreed to something like that. So the war is pretty much going to keep going until they collapse. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all for being here with us. I hope y'all have enjoyed it greatly, because I know I enjoyed it personally. We had 114,000 viewers here before the stream ended. I mean, holy moly, that's a lot of people right there. That's a lot of people who watched the stream, and I gotta thank y'all greatly, for being here and enjoying the stream and subscribing and supporting and everything else in between. I mean, it's a great deal. It's a great deal. We're happy to have y'all here, and I hope y'all enjoyed it tonight, and we will see you all maybe tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. I'm just kidding. It's always tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava, and long live the Republic and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, good night to you all. We will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next Nightly War News stream. And also midday tomorrow as well. The Enforcer will be joining you on that video if there is enough news to cover. And also, let me get rid of this bot right here at the very end. And with that, folks, we will see you all then. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.
Army shall